Mr. Khurana is the managing partner of Chair Amrit Legal LLP.
We are honored to have you, sir.
I would now like to invite CA Venu Madhavi Mupala ma'am to kindly grace the dais. Ms. Madhavi is a partner with Tax and Regulatory Services with EY India. She has an experience of over 13 years in the field of direct taxes and corporate laws. She also specializes in the area of tax advisory and strategy.
Lastly, I invite Shri Ravi Sarangal, sir, to please join the panel. Mr. Ravi Sarangal is an IRS officer and presently posted as the Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, Jaipur. He has represented the revenue at IT-80 in various sensitive cases. We are honored to have you, sir.
Moving on, I request CA Mohit Gupta and CA Surendra Agarwal to come up and felicitate Shri Ravi Sarangal sir with a bouquet and memento.
I now request CA Sonia Sharma and CA Khushbu Maheshwari to kindly come up and felicitate CA Venu Madhavi Mupala ma'am with a bouquet and memento.
May I now invite CA Milan Parikh sir and CA Rakshita Vijay ma'am to present a bouquet and memento to CA Mukesh Gupta sir.
Next, I request CA Subhash Yadav and CA Kuldeep Sharma to kindly come up and felicitate Advocate Prakul Khurana with a bouquet and memento.
I now request CA Arun Bhaskar sir, Chairman Seeker Branch of ICAI, and CA Rakesh Jhakar sir, ex-chairman Bikaner branch of ICAI, to felicitate CA Rajiv Sogani sir with a bouquet and memento.
Let's welcome all the accomplished panelists with a huge round of applause. We now request the session moderator to kindly take over the session and commence the session. Over to you, Rajiv, sir.
Good afternoon, participants, and I welcome all the panelists. Friends, the topic is very relevant, very contemporary, new reassessment and faceless assessment regime. Ease, opportunities, and challenges. We are all aware a lot of ease is there on account of e-proceedings, maybe the ease of assessees, maybe the ease of department, and of course the ease of councils. Lot of opportunities have been assured, and of course everyone is battling with the challenges because every system takes its own time to settle down. So we are also facing challenges. And friends, we have a very rich panel, very distinguished panelists are here to deliberate upon the issues concerning this topic. We have Ravi Sarangal sir, Chief Commissioner of Income Tax IRS Officer from Jodhpur. Venu ma'am from Hyderabad, partner EY, Prakul Khurana, advocate, and Mukesh Gupta, who has a rich experience, first-hand experience of dealing with the tax matters. And friends, we have around 90 minutes time, and we will be raising certain issues for deliberations. And I will request the panelists to be kindly brief, and if anyone has to add whatever has been said by the earlier panelist, he can definitely add. Now my first question, or maybe the first issue I wish to raise before the learned panelists, is what skill modification is needed by professionals to be relevant, to be proficient in new environment of faceless assessment and appeals. Friends, we know the faceless regime has created a lot of challenges for the professionals because we don't have any personal connect. Whenever we were explaining the things to the assessing officer or maybe to the CIT appeal, we had the benefit of eye contact or the face reading, whether our viewpoint is well taken or not. If it is not well taken, we would change our wordings. We will explain it with some example if we feel it is not well taken by the officer. Even if it is not well taken in the second round, we will proceed third round. So all those possibilities are not there now because of the faceless regime. Whatever we have written, that is uploaded and that is end of the matter. Now, therefore, my first issue for deliberation is what modification of skills is required. And being ladies first, my first question would be to Venu ma'am, what she feels is the requirement of modification of skills by the professionals to be relevant in this faceless regime.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Before I actually get into the core topic of faceless assessment per se, there is a lot of difference the way the tax function is operating today. That's something we see a very paradigm shift. Way back earlier, if one has to collaborate, earlier, thanks. So earlier the instances were that it was the finance or the accounts team in a particular organization who had the control of the data, right? And subsequently is what they used to extract from the ERP and then pass it on to the tax team. The tax team used to prepare the returns and then submit to the department. So the tax authorities used to get access at a very later stage. Now that process is gone away. So even the tax administrators are able to get the transaction level details. We have seen instances where they have come forward and asked, okay, you have deposited an X amount of advance tax. Is it that this is the correct amount in comparison to the previous quarters or in comparison to the quarters of the prior years? So that kind of detailing and transaction level details have been accessed by the tax authorities. So that is one aspect which there is a lot of change. Apart from that, the other aspect could be is also on the technical updates. We all know as professionals, we have to be updated. That's something which we have to take care of. But the way the changes have come in the legislations, it's drastic changes have come up, be it, for instance, like the small transaction-related things like the TDS or the TCS-related. The quantification may not be very substantial, but yes, compliance is the core key there. So that is also one more aspect. Over and above that, also technology. The best example here could be is the Project Insight, which the tax department is looking at, where they are able to extract the details, even they are able to access the social media, identify what an individual SSE is doing. So that's the level of detailing which the tax administration is looking at. So it's time for the SSEs also to be proactive and to be much more efficient. That is one. And when it comes to in specific on this particular topic of faceless assessment, what we have seen is that the time constraint is certainly a factor here. So it is always better for the SSEs to be upfront ready. We use the word as audit readiness. So it's good that they're ready at the time when we file the returns itself. We know what kind of questions can come up basis the previous year questionnaires which we would have come across. So that is one such instance which an SSE can be upfront ready. So that's how people have to enhance themselves in terms of their skill set, be it a consultant or for that matter, being a part of the tax team in an organization.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I was keen on knowing the modification in the personal skills for presenting the case because the personal skill for presenting the case before the officer in person would be materially different when it comes to faceless. So if Mukesh ji can add, or I will even request very shortly for Prakul ji also to add, and what department is facing problem, I'll come later on to you, sir. Mukesh.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. First of all, we all are from Rajasthan, and we know, you know that earlier we have experience of presenting our case face to face with the respecting assessing officer. We are very good in presenting our case face to face, but we are not good in submissions. So first of all, very important thing, हमको अपने आप को इतना अपडेट करना है और हमारी सबमिशन को इतना एलुसिएट और इतना ब्रीफ बनाना है जिससे कि असेसिंग ऑफिसर जो फेसलेस में बैठा हुआ है उसको प्रॉपर ढंग से समझ सके. सबमिशंस में प्रॉपर इंडेक्सिंग्स करना, जो एनेक्सेस आप लगा रहे हैं साथ में, उस एनेक्सेस के प्रॉपर इंडेक्सिंग करके जिससे कि वो इजीली, बिकॉज जब हम प्रैक्टिकली पहले असेसमेंट कराते थे तो पूरी फाइल बना के ले जाते थे और वो पूछता था कि यार ये कैसे कैलकुलेट किया, ये किस तरह से निकाला है, तो हम एनेक्सर खोल के दिखा देते थे. Now it is very difficult, now it is not possible for us. So then our submission should be in such manner that it should specify the which annexer you want to highlight to the assessing officer. Number one. Number two, normally we get the cases जिनकी हम रिटर्न भरते हैं. हमको जब रिटर्न भरते हैं तो 360 डिग्री व्यू अपनाना चाहिए. 360 डिग्री व्यू क्या होगा कि जब हम, जैसे मैम ने विनू मैम ने बोला कि आपको जो पिछले सालों में असेसमेंट हुए हैं उनके बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन होनी चाहिए. नंबर टू, आज की डेट में AIS, TIS एज वेल एज 26 AS, ये तीनों चीज़ें आपको पहले पोर्टल पर आ जाती हैं. और जो सिलेक्शन ऑफ केसेस हैं, इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट सिलेक्शन करता है, मैनुअल सिलेक्शन कुछ भी नहीं है. सर्च केसेस और सर्वे केसेस को छोड़ दीजिए, बाकी सिलेक्शन जो है वो ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ AI बेस पे है. तो
I may interrupt, Mukesh ji. My question specifically is the personal skill set.
Yes, I'm coming to.
So all these would be relevant.
I'm
All these would be relevant even if it is not faceless.
Okay.
So my request to you is to confine to the faceless issues. जैसे आपने बहुत सही कहा कि पहले हम असेसिंग ऑफिसर को जानते थे और मेरे ख्याल से जितने लोग यहाँ मौजूद हैं तो कुछ असेसिंग ऑफिसर्स होते थे कि अगर आपने कहा कि ये केस लॉ है तो हो सकता है कि एक कैटेगरी वो थी कि केस लॉ का नाम सुनते ही चिढ़ जाते थे और कहते थे कि भैया फिर ये तुम अपील में करना, फैक्ट्स की बात है. So that problem is there. How do we address that problem? We don't know the nature of the officer who is dealing with the case.
मैम अपडेशन की बात कही मैम ने, ऑनलाइन अपडेशन. एक टर्न अराउंड टाइम इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन फेसलेस बिकॉज नॉर्मली वी गेट द नोटिस इन 15 days नोटिस टाइम गिवन, नेक्स्ट टाइम 7 days टाइम इज गिवन. तो वी हैव ए लिमिटेड टाइम. इन 7 days टाइम वी हैव टू गेट इंफॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम द क्लाइंट आल्सो दैट and preparing the submissions also and submit to the department. So that is very important. Number 3, मैं एक और चीज़ कहना चाहूँगा अपने प्रोफेशनल्स के फ़ायदे के लिए कि जो सबमिशंस आप बना रहे हैं वो सबमिशन 3 स्टेज पे वेरीफाई होना चाहिए. जो सबमिशंस बन के आ रहा है एक उस स्टेज पे, दूसरी स्टेज पे आपको अपनी ऑडिट टीम को इंक्लूड कर सकते हैं बिकॉज हम प्रैक्टिसिंग चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट सारे, तो हम ऑडिट टीम को इंक्लूड कर सकते हैं. वो एज एन ITO उस सबमिशंस को वेरीफाई करें. तो उस केस में आपके जो सबमिशंस हैं और फाइनल जो पार्टनर व्यू पे जब आप सबमिशन दे रहे हैं तो वो फाइनली देखे उसको, तो सबमिशन जो जाएंगे बिल्कुल प्रॉपर मैनर में जाएंगे और आपको जस्टिस मिलने की पूरी उम्मीद रहेगी.
Very right, Mukesh ji, because vetting within the office before the submissions are forwarded or uploaded, that is what you want to say. Prakul, the scope of court craft is no more there now. So as an advocate, what do you feel that the skill, those who had that skill of court craft has become irrelevant in the faceless regime?
I would not say, sir, completely it becomes irrelevant because जो drafting skills हैं, they are much needed in this faceless regime. जो क्योंकि पहले जब आपका one-to-one interaction होता था, तो orally you can make your submissions. लेकिन अब जो faceless regime में है, तो it is your written submissions which have taken more relevance because most of the time आप written submissions ही दे रहे हैं. Oral submissions का आपके पास जो opportunity है वो बहुत limited है. When you seek opportunity of personal hearing और वो VC से आपको opportunity देते हैं. So I believe जो written submissions हैं उसका relevance बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया है इस faceless regime में. इसलिए जो draft है उसका precise होना, concise होना और actually assessing officer आपसे क्या चाह रहा है उसको समझ करके उसको कम शब्दों में precisely उसको answer करना with all the judgments which you have in your favor to court, that has become more important. So I think this is the new skill set which has to be acquired by most of the professionals जो पुराने regime से नए regime में आ रहे हैं. So I think that is the most substantial change जो इस regime में आया है.
Very right, and I think more and more use of graphics, charts, tables, probably indexation not only of the paper book but of the submissions also, the executive summary of the submissions, probably these are the new skills which we need to acquire. That is what the panel feels. Sir, my question.
One thing I add करना चाहूँगा.
Mukesh ji, we can come because we have.
इसी point पे.
Right.
हमारी कोशिश होनी चाहिए कि फैक्ट से रिलेटेड जो भी मैटर्स हैं वो फर्स्ट असेसमेंट के टाइम पे जितना एविडेंस हम दे सकते हैं वो देने चाहिए बिकॉज उसके बाद हमको टाइम नहीं मिलेगा आगे देने का ना ट्रिब्यूनल में मिलेगा ना अपील में मिलेगा ना हाई कोर्ट में मिलेगा दिस
right. Sir, you have understood the story of the other side. Sir, what is the problem departmental officers are facing? Because I am sure assessing officer with the assistance of chartered accountants or the professionals was very much at ease. उसको बहुत कम समय में सारी बात समझ में आ जाती थी. Maybe even CIT appeal को भी we could explain, sir, ये figure यहाँ से tally हो रहा है, इसका मतलब ये है. Judgment के relevant portions हम पढ़ करके बता देते थे. तो आपको लगता है सर कि बल्कि सबमिशन से ऑफिसर्स भी उस आदत के नहीं हैं कि उन सबमिशंस को पढ़ करके वो अपना मानस बना सकें. सो व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस बीइंग फेस्ड बाय द ऑफिसर्स ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट?
Good afternoon, friends. First of all, I thank you all for giving me this opportunity. So first question was, what are the things required for proficiency or efficiency of the councils for this purpose? So since I have been PCIT in faceless earlier also, so what my experiences were there, I will like to share with you, and some information which you may not be aware fully. Like we had a time-to-time interaction with my officers when I was a PCIT. I used to monitor it closely. So what I found, so many officers were saying we made so many in quality assessment. Normally the ITO says I made this much addition, that is a quality assessment. So that is the continuous history of thinking of the ITOs that we are, since addition of 5 crore is made, this is my quality assessment. I always differ with the officers on this point. Because if you are doing an ex parte assessment without hearing the other side, how can this be a quality? And some of you will agree with me, there has been a number of cases where ex parte assessments number was large in the last 2 years compared to when you were appearing in person before the officers. So sometime there were some technical glitches, sometime the officer was not able to put forward his view properly before you and you were not reply properly. In those cases, huge demand was created. And in some cases, I'm having knowledge of that cases personally. We created demands in cases where this was totally contrary to the facts on record. Because nobody wants to face the situation where somebody will say, you must have, you all are aware of the one judgment of Allahabad High Court. What the department says, that otherwise it will come on us. So that thinking, 2 days back I had a meeting with my officers here in Jaipur. I told them, be rational. Instead of developing the insecurity that if I do not add it, it will create a problem. So on the issue of proficiency, first of all, the prerequisite is that the council should be fully aware what is coming in the reasons for putting the case under scrutiny. You come to know immediately when you receive a notice, first notice, because that is the reasons given in this very questionnaire itself, that this is the reason your case has been selected for scrutiny. 90% his investigations will be revolving around that issue only. You must have seen. Sometime we are not giving proper replies to that. And officer says, once I have seen the cases where one notice is given 3 months back, and then suddenly, when time-barring date comes, the officer passes an order. Some remedial actions have been taken, by improvement has been done, like 2 minimum show cause notices are to be given now as per the latest SOP. There has been improvement, like no VC is possible. Earlier, 2 years back, VC was requested for, and we were not able to give to the SSCs, to the councils. And if VC is given, time is so less, the council is not able to put forward his view properly. So my request is that all the council should ensure that when the first question itself comes, you are replying to the point. There should not be any point left in that, because that becomes then a gray area for the ITO to decide against you. And maybe by just a small, just as my friend told you, that there should be some verification process at your level. See, I know when I type one letter, I commit so many mistakes because I verify myself. If some other person in your office verifies it, you will find he is able to correct it to a larger extent. So my request is that that process should be there. From the side of the officer, what I find, some of the officers, not all, they still think somebody should request them. That mentality we have to overcome. I keep on telling in my office, please don't expect somebody will request you, sir, my work is pending with you, please do it. See, over the year, they have worked in that department. This is the reason. Some seasoned person, very senior person will be coming, sir, please do this work. He feels a little pampered. That thing, I think in some cases they miss it. But we have to change with times. I keep on telling, we are holding seminar also. Today itself we had one meeting just before coming over here about Rozgar Mela, and the Prime Minister made one statement, very relevant statement, that is relevant, very relevant for our department also. He said, citizen is always right. I'm not taking in absolute terms, but if you take the spirit of this statement, that means consider if I'm put in the same situation where I'm putting the other person. We are trying to counsel, we are trying to give orientation to our officers, and holding seminars of capacity building is one such effort where we can improve the quality of our officers. Plus, we are also inviting the speakers from other side of the table also, so that we know how the problems are faced by you and where we are lacking in our technical know-how. For example, one of the issues which I also find it very convincing, when you log in a request for adjournment, you do not know the status until unless the officer replies to you. So I was raising an issue. Now we are trying to consolidate that points after meeting various speakers, that why can't we have a system like train reservation system? So you keep on getting update whether your request has been allowed or not, or where it is pending. Because so far I am told, once you make a request, you do not have any knowledge of it. But if that system is developed, functionality is developed, that if it is pending before the AO will also be under obligation to dispose it off, and you will come to know. This type of things we are finding that this will improve further. And I was discussing with Sogani, this is a transitory period. This is a period of transition. 2 years we have already spent, and you are finding a much improvement. I think in the coming year or in the next year, this will be much improved working. and you will find a sea of difference in our working. That's what.
Thank you very much, sir. Nice to hear the departmental viewpoint and the perception of the department, particularly a very senior officer saying that high-pitched assessments are not good. That is a very good thing to hear. For the audience, my next issue for deliberation, which I wish to raise before the panelists, is now this faceless regime, maybe it is assessment or appeal, the principle of delivery of justice, because delivery of justice traditionally, in our country particularly, one-to-one hearing is there. So what is, whether this faceless regime, assessments and appeal, is it compliant to that principle of delivery of justice? And because we have Prakul Khurana here with us, if you can throw light, do you feel the basic principles of law are met even if it is faceless?
So broadly, I feel yes, because they give you entire opportunity. Of course, if the notices are coming at the fag end when the limitation is gonna go, then of course you can say breach of that natural justice is there.
No, that will be there in case of non-faceless also. I'm asking when
In general?
yes, in general, when I am not given opportunity to appear personally, is it limiting my rights?
I think then it goes more towards the constitutional
That is what
provisions.
we want to hear from you.
I don't think it makes it arbitrary, because in Constitution of India, unless it is arbitrary, it hits Article 14, only then you can challenge it that oral hearing is creating some kind of impediment in my right to present before the authority. But so far as the provisions are concerned, they have come with a certain objective to make it more uniform, so the benefits of this scheme are visible. They are there. So once that is there, so the Article 14, according to me, it doesn't get hit. So far as the principles of natural justice are concerned, I think it is inbuilt in this, because they give you a show cause notice. You can give whatever it is. After all, everything in income tax proceedings, most of the issues are documentary based. You have your explanations, you have to give your evidence. So the relevance of oral hearings at that stage, I believe, are less. It's more about explanation. So explanation in a written form can go in a better manner, I personally believe. Therefore,
I understand there are certain writs pending before certain high courts in this regard. So what do you feel?
Again, it would come to Article 14. When it comes to taxation provisions, the Supreme Court is very clear that in tax provisions, they cannot be taken as if a general law. In tax matters, some loose rope has to be given to the parliament, to the legislative, for creating those kind of provisions, because it is for the tax provisions. So they are, it is taken as a different class from the general laws. So that, I would say, that benefit is there. So it is not available to the assessees to challenge those provisions on that ground. So far as the faceless assessment procedure is concerned, I think it is quite fair, because you can always ask for oral hearing, and if it is not granted, either because of the technical glitch or on account of some deficiency on the part of the department, then you can always invoke Article 14 and go to the High Court invoking writ petition jurisdiction and ask that my right of being heard has not been granted to me. So the provisions are not hit by Article 14. If the your opportunity is not given to you, your legal right is denied to you, then you can get it remedied through the writ courts.
Thank you, Prakul, because we understand that this absence of personal hearing is no impediment in the principles of delivery of justice. Now let us move forward. My question to Venu ma'am, can you compare the system which is prevailing in India with the similar system of faceless prevailing in some other countries, developed countries? What is the comparison? What level they have reached? So any comparison if you can make.
So if we have to look at across the geographies, there are totally 5 stages is where we can classify the different countries. We call it as like say e-filing, e-accounting, or e-match, or for that matter, e-audit and ESS. These are the 5 categories where most of the geographies can be split across. So if we have to look at like country like India now, we are at the stage of e-audit. We have moved much ahead. So if I have to compare at that particular instance, e-audit stage, we do have countries like say Brazil, Poland, and for that matter, even Mexico. So these are some of the countries where they are at the e-audit stage. One specific point which I would like to highlight here is that, for example, like say country like Poland, they have reached a stage of e-audit, but at the same time they're marching towards ESS. When I say ESS, it is the tax authorities are in a position to extract the from the ERP directly from the SSEs, assess the tax, what would be the exact tax liability of the SSE, and then give an opportunity to the SSE to make that assessment whether that tax liability which they have determined is correct or not. So there are some countries at that stage as well. The best example is Spain here, where they have already reached. Poland is marching towards it. So that is one aspect. Of course, we all think that US is much advanced, okay? But honestly speaking, US is still at the e-file stage only, okay? We are much ahead when compared to US. That's one specific thing which I would like to highlight. The other point is even OECD has given out the Tax Administration 3.0, where they have given out clearly across the geographies what is that the tax administrators, totally around 76 tax administrative wings are across. So in those respective geographies, what is that the tax administrators have undertaken, at what stage they are in, that kind of a report has been released by OECD. It's really a very good report. If one has to make that assessment, I think it will be a very good one to refer. The other point which the OECD has also highlighted is that there are other geographies, some of the geographies where they have used artificial intelligence as well to make an assessment of the tax liability. So that there are some countries even at that stage as well.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Comparatively, we are better than US, what Venu ma'am has to say. And you refer to artificial intelligence, and I wish to take the deliberation to that stage. What do you feel? After faceless, what is the next stage? Are we moving towards officerless assessment, like the driverless car? Is it possible? Or is any country has experimented in this direction? Anybody who has some experience? Because we have, probably, there is a news that there will be a robot lawyer defending a case probably next month in the court of either UK or US. So some robot lawyer would be defending a case. And I feel CPC is already officerless. CPC is functioning already officerless, although CPC के जिस तरीके से orders आ रहे हैं तो कुछ लोग तो ये कह रहे हैं कि वो तो driverless की तरह काम कर रहे हैं. But I don't think the time is far off. So what do you feel, the panelists here, Venu ma'am, if you can throw some light on the use of artificial intelligence, and Ravi sir, is the department having any such project? The project Insight was a big project. So any project which the department is thinking to take up using artificial intelligence and removing the discretion, because the biggest problem in assessments is the personal discretion of the assessing officer. So in spite of faceless, that discretion still remains. So is it possible to eliminate that discretion by use of artificial intelligence, and the assessment orders are also passed not by the assessing officers, but using the artificial intelligence, some robot assessing officers? What are the views? Venu ma'am first, and then Ravi sir.
I don't think till now any country has reached to that stage where there is officerless kind of a stage. The example which I was referring to earlier, that is Spain, is the very classic example where it is completely through artificial intelligence is what they actually compute. But at the same time, when it is being referred to the SSE back to check the accuracy of the tax liability, the tax administrator is into picture. So as of now, I cannot envisage a scenario where it can be completely officer-less, but yeah, we are marching towards it. That's one thing which I can certainly say here.
Ravi sir, you think department, we are not aware whether department is thinking in those directions. Is it possible?
No, I'm in the same bus as you are. I'm not aware any such proposal is there so far, and I think from the field they have not asked for any feedback on this point. So I can confirm as on date. It is not any thinking like that. I tell you one example.
What is your guess or a speculation? Is it possible in near future or maybe in a distant future? May
I
not
think
be any project
partly
taken.
artificial intelligence is already used by the department.
No, I am asking for officerless assessment. Artificial intelligence
I
is
think
very
there
much
no
is in
such
use.
proposal. I don't think there is any proposal at any stage so far, at least not in my knowledge. But I tell you my example, why I'm not in favor of that also. One
So that
example I would like
is
to
also
tell
an
you.
issue, whether the department wants that or not. That is
No,
another issue.
See, it's relevant here, why I'm discussing with you people. Some parameters are normally given in cash cases. You must have seen, all of you, when you receive reasons for selection and you reply to that, some parameters are given. I had one case with my officer. The reason given was that huge refund, verification of that, genuineness of refund. He brought the file before me. You will be surprised, the refund was around 15,000 odd. And this SC was from Jharkhand, and he was a salaried employee. 3-4 lakh was hardly his income. So see some parameters, how do they commit mistakes? So it was because of the presence of mind of that ITO, he brought before me, we discussed it, and then we filed the proceedings. Because there was no other income, as on face of it. But if we rely on that totally officerless scenario, I think such cases will not be filed. This is my view, that there has to be presence of human mind in such matters. Yes, discretion should be minimized. Thank you.
What about this robot advocate? Because that is one thing, and we will have an audience poll also, whether the audience present here is willing to take this, that yes, there should be officerless using artificial intelligence, and the assessment should be done by robot assessing officers. So we will, at the end of what Prakul or Mukeshji has to say on this regard.
So I think so far as the tax proceedings are concerned, they are nowhere near going to that driverless or officerless assessment, because in every provision there is a discretion. May words are used, so discretion is there. And the purpose of giving the discretion is that if the facts warrant, the authority can take the view in accordance with the facts. So making it officerless, I don't think is going to come in next 10 years in the tax regime. But limited use.
But beyond 10 years, you feel it may?
So to some extent, I think it can come, because these are quasi-judicial proceedings. When it is quasi-judicial proceedings, the application of mind is required. It is not something standardized being done. Like, for example, even under 220 subsection 6 of the income tax, 20% circular was there, then it was reduced. Still the discretion is there even in that circular. Although the provision is silent, he can give you 100% stay. The provision says so. But the circular instruction says no, 20% or 10% which can be reduced.
No, Prakul, but that rationality can be imbibed through artificial intelligence in the robot officer also. So my personal feeling, I'm not a panelist, I'm only moderator here, but my personal feeling is the time is not far off where such discretions and the use of word may at so many places in the act that can also be used by the robot assessing officers. So I am optimistic, at least to some extent, in the distant future, there will be use of artificial intelligence to that extent that the discretion which presently indiscreetly is used by the assessing officers would be minimized.
Sir, I think,
probably Mukesh
if
ji
I
has
can
something.
add one thing, sir.
Yes.
It may be at first level as suggested by you, but there has to be a provision for review then. if someone is not satisfied, then there has to be to go to the human mind.
Yes,
Involvement has to be there.
Yes,
So
yes. But but the things are moving so fast. Nobody could think of a robot advocate defending a case in the court of law. That is happening probably next month itself. Probably Mukesh ji has something to add on it.
I think present scenario it is not possible because the present act is so voluminous and so many sections, provisions, explanations are there. So it is.
No, Mukesh ji,
Sir,
it is not worse than the road. When a car can be driven on road without a driver by use of artificial intelligence, so don't think that it is impossible. Let us see what happens.
The government has to change the act, sir, first. If new law of income tax scheme, it is possible. In that case, it is possible. But in present income tax act, whatever the act is there, I think it is very difficult.
नहीं अपन देख रहे हैं जब CPC is now officerless. Nobody could think of such a situation maybe 5 or 10 years back that it can happen so. Anyhow, friends, so can the audience raise their hands that if those who feel that maybe in distant future at least it is possible, if they can raise their hands. Yes, very less people think that it is possible almost. Probably the House is unanimous, it is not possible. At least even in the distant future, it is not possible. Now moving forward, one technical issue. In the faceless regime, the team-based assessments are there. In the assessment itself, there is assessment unit, there is verification unit, technical unit, review unit. So what is the relevance of section 263, which is review of any mistake, which is order which is erroneous and prejudicial to the interest of revenue? So what is the relevance of section 263? Because the chances of error in a team-based work is very less. Similarly, what is the relevance of section 144 capital A, where either the assessing officer or the assessee or the joint commissioner himself could issue directions for the purpose of assessment. Now the joint commissioner is very much involved by way of a team in completing the assessment. So these two sections, what is the relevance, or do you feel that these two sections have become redundant? And I'll like to seek the views of Ravi sir on both the sections, the relevance of these two sections.
See, first of all, in the present scenario, it is the jurisdictional officers who pass the 263 orders, not the faceless. Faceless officer will not be passing 263 orders. It will not be the principal commissioner faceless.
No, that is true. But the order which is passed originally is passed by a team. Now, finding any order which is erroneous or prejudicial to the interest of the revenue, when it is not a case of a single assessing officer. So the chances of the order being erroneous and prejudicial to the interest of revenue are minimized.
Yes.
So what is the relevance of section 263 in the present scenario?
That is true. We have a review unit which reviews the orders first and then it is issued to the SSE. So chances are less, but statutory that section still remains there. It is operative, it's functional, but I still remember there was a communication from the board which suggests that it will be rarest of the rare cases where, and you will be witness to it, I think, most of you must not have received frequency of 263 orders as it used to be earlier. Show cause notice have been minimized. In extreme cases, they are doing 263 cases because thinking of the department is that once review unit has reviewed the case and that PCIT level officer is reviewing that case, that means there is no mistake until unless some prima facie mistake comes which has not been looked into by the officer properly. Otherwise, you will find this is almost very negligible number of cases where 263 is done. What was the practice earlier? Commissioner will call for a file and issue a show cause notice. It used to be...
Probably there was target for 263 also in the earlier regime.
No, this is a changed no situation. So, but secondly, you are saying when it is a integrated assessment you are saying. In the faceless you are doing it. But that's not the case. Principal commissioner is not involved in the process of assessment. He only approves. There is no approval of principal commissioner to pass an assessment order. So, legally speaking, it cannot be said that the order has been passed with the approval of the commissioner, principal commissioner. So, he is well within his right to do that, but practically, I personally feel that number of cases of 263 proposals are to the minimum nowadays, and this is the reason that situation has been made such like it has been made to understand to the officer that on the rarest of the rare cases where some prima facie mistake has happened, in those cases only 263, resort to 263 should be taken.
And sir, what about 144A directions? Probably this section has become redundant according to me now, because Joint Commissioner himself is involved in the assessment. So, and there is no mechanism available. I was explaining that if I make an application for seeking a direction under section 144A, the assessing officer in the present system of e-assessment will not respond to it. And I don't know where to file this application, and the order is passed without any reference of my request under section 144A for seeking directions from the Joint Commissioner to the assessing officer. So that is absent, and I feel, Prokul, probably this can be a reason for disputing the assessment order and getting it quashed, because 144A proceedings have been neglected in spite of the fact that this section still continues on the statute book. So, sir, 144A probably we need to deliberate.
Now, on that issue, as per present system, all the replies filed by the consuls are to go to NFAC, then through that it goes to the assessing officer. FAO it goes to. Though no other authority gets that communication from you. Whenever you file reply for assessment, it goes to that officer. And 144 is part of the assessment. Direction
144A, where I see
when you request for instructions to the assessing officer by the range head. So, but there is no window open for the range head to access that you want to make some reference to him. It is through the assessing officer only it will go. Now, we had a similar situation like special audit cases. We had one case, that's how we raised this issue to the NFAC, then we got that answer. In that case, you will file a reply addressed to the range head. It will be addressed like range head so-and-so. You will get an idea who is the, on the system you say this is to be, subject will be instructions, request for instructions under 144A. Then it is a duty of the assessing officer to send those, that copy of the communication to the range head, then range head should dispose it off after providing you opportunity. But this medium will be the assessing officer. Like what we did in that case of special audit, officer gave a notice to the SSC, but before that he has to get my approval for, PCIT's approval for referring the case for special audit. So I need to pass an order, speaking order, as per the Supreme Court ruling. Then how do I pass? Because I do not have any access to the communication with the SSC. So I sent my draft order without my name and all that to the officer. Officer communicated to the SSC, a show cause notice, then SSC replied, then I passed a final order. That was also conveyed to the portal, to the SSC, and then there is a way out for that. But you're saying that since it is passed with the, all the, no even adjournments of the approval of the range head, what is the relevance of that? There may be a case, see, range head is receiving hundreds of cases for approval. He may not be aware of a particular issue, but you will like to flag it through 144A. This is an opportunity, because that section is still in the statute. So you can send a letter through this, and he's under obligation to dispose it off. Range head has to pass that order, and it has to be communicated to you. This is my view, because 144A section has not been deleted from the statute. So 144 is always for a specific issue. It's not a general instructions we issue. So that issue may not, like you have a feeling that FAO is not understanding your point of view. Laws is in your favor, but he is not understanding. So through this process, you can bring in the knowledge of the range head, and this will have a better case for you for the reason that controlling officer will discuss the matter definitely with his range head, and then you are likely to get a better justice in this case if you move a 144. This is my feeling.
So, but my feeling is, because I am aware of the couple of cases where such request was made, but nothing happens, and the system has no mechanism to address to this situation. The order is passed without any reference of my application for 144A, and probably subsequently in appeals, the department would be at odd situation, because application having been moved is still, without considering that application, without even saying that no directions are required in this case, is still the assessment order is passed. Probably subsequently such orders can be quashed. So that is, yes.
My request is that wherever you find such situation, please take it as a ground of appeal. Because that is your right.
So kind
that
of
has to be disposed of. What can we do?
It's a very, very
We have-
fair.
See, we had a seminar this week, and the one range had told me, sir, we are passing with the approval. Where is the question of 144 a disposal? Application of. In my view, that has to be disposed of. You may accept it, you may reject it. But that disposal has to be there, because there is a specific section under the act which has not been taken away. How can you simply ignore that? And sitting on that file, I think helps the assessee, which I do not like my officers to facilitate it.
Yes, sir. But very candid admission that we should take this as a separate ground of appeal.
So even
Probably-
otherwise, to add on, it constitutes a good ground for preferring a writ petition also. Because it is a legal right, and that being denied, so it can be preferred. Even before the assessment order is passed, that the authority is proceeding without disposing of your application. And even post passing of the assessment order, instead of going in appeal, one other remedy would be a writ petition also.
That is the advantage of having an advocate on the panel. Friends, we also have the reassessment issues also, new reassessment regime. So let us now have some discussion on some of the issues of reassessment. My first issue for deliberation by the panelists, the very learned panelists here, there is a sea change in the reassessment scheme. Some feel that it has become for the department as easy as picking a case for scrutiny. That is one view. The other view is, no, it has become very difficult for the department, because previously it was the assessing officer has reason to believe, now it is the income has escaped the assessment. So instead of a prima facie case of escapement, it has to be a more definitive. So sir, my view, my request to you, Ravi sir and Venu ma'am, both you, what do you feel, in your opinion, the new law is more rigid so far as department is concerned, very difficult to have recourse to reassessment, or very easy to have recourse to reassessment? Ravi sir first, and then Venu ma'am.
I studied political science when I was in college. So we studied Indian Constitution. There is only one article, if you remove that, that is totally autocratic constitution. And that is when you say there will be a council of ministers to aid and advise the President of India. So otherwise, see, all the articles referring to the President of India as the Supreme Commander of Forces. So this is the thing you are referring to, that wording of the section is like that. But see the practical sense. Now, the approval has to be taken at the level of Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. See the check system so sensitively taken up to the highest field officer, rather one step above the field officer. So I feel there are lesser chances of arbitrariness in this case, because now, and secondly, when we see this in the light of that Allahabad High Court judgment, I feel there will definitely be a positive change in the system. There will be a logical thinking, more logic application of mind, and there will be less number of cases where unnecessarily people have been dragged to court, because that was a writ case, I suppose. That was not a normal appeal case, it was a writ case.
Probably sir is referring to the Allahabad High Court judgment where 50 lakhs cost was
That has
imposed
been
on the
reduced, I think, to
department.
5
No,
lakh.
reduced,
It
but
has reduced to
initially it was 50 lakhs.
But
of
issue
rupees.
remains the same.
Issue remains the same.
See, though the wording as per that
And
section,
we are also aware of a Lucknow bench of Allahabad High Court judgment of some Dhingra, where the assessing officer, in a very unfortunate manner, was sent for a one-day remand, judicial remand, because of his arbitrariness. So anyhow, that is another issue, but according to Ravi sir, for the department, because the approval is from the highest authority, so reopening is not as easier, because earlier it was at a lower level and merely reason to believe could lead to reopening. Now probably because of the checks and balances, approval of the highest officers, and according to me, the income has escaped assessment. Because of this, probably for the department, it has become more difficult to reopen the cases.
one point I would like to add. Sorry, I'm interrupting. Yes, one more point. Second aspect is, now it is a system driven. Mostly, you get information, 360-degree information we get, and then only we issue. Earlier, whatever, suppose you have passed a scrutiny order, then the officer thinks, no, I did not do it properly, let's issue 148. That system is gone now. It's morely when there is a prima facie, some escapement is available, then only they will do it. Otherwise, it is not viewpoint rather than which was earlier. The officer was thinking, my view, this should have been taxed. Sometime there will be some judgment in favor, some against that, and he will say, I go by this judgment, we should issue 148. That system is gone now, I feel.
So that is a happy development probably with the new regime. Venu ma'am, you have to add.
Nothing much to add here, but one point is that it's a very well-structured section now. That's something which one can look at, because if we see the wordings also, it has been clearly mentioned that it's not that that there is a reason as such to believe, okay? By, like sir mentioned now, mere change of opinion of the officer also, in the past, there was a possibility to issue reassessments, right? But now currently, it's very well structured that in the first instance, there has to be given a reasons as to why they are opening. Then there has to be opportunity given to the SSC, and then that's when they make an assessment, and then actually the reassessment proceeding starts off, right? So a very well-informed decision is being taken by the highest person in the authority, and then only the reassessment proceedings start. So it's well articulated and well structured in that way.
So probably it is contrary to the general perception that the new reassessment regime has made the reassessment easier for the department. Probably it is not so. The next issue, because it is already 3:30 and we have to wind up the session by 4, and we have a couple of more issues. Yes, sir. So we will come up, I have compiled certain issues. We will also hand over those issues to Ravi sir for onward transmission to the appropriate level. I have included that 154 issue also. But before that, Prakulji, one issue, the earlier two judgments, Jet Airways and Renbexy, were very much in use, that unless the original income which is said to have escaped is brought to tax, any further income could not be brought to tax. That was the law, because the earlier words were escaped income and also any other income. Now the word and also is deleted. Probably department is thinking that now it is not necessary for the department to tax the originally escaped income if the department feels that the originally escaped income for which the assessment was reopened is fully explained, there is no escapement. But during the course of proceedings, some other income which has escaped assessment comes to the knowledge of the assessing officer, that they can tax in spite of the original income not being taxed. So whether and also words deleted have made these two judgments irrelevant, or the situation continues to be same?
So I think the situation continues to be the same, because one is assuming jurisdiction. So at the stage of assuming jurisdiction, whatever information he has, the authority has for assuming jurisdiction, that has to be correct. Unless that is correct, the jurisdiction itself falls. It breaks. So the question of further adding or doing something interfering with the finalized assessment does not arise. So unless that jurisdiction has been assumed rightly, the information is correct, and he makes an addition subsequently on that point, and in course of it, the authority finds some other issue which he feels is has also escaped assessment, then he would have the jurisdiction, not otherwise. Those two judgments still hold the field according to me. There is no change, and even otherwise, recently Delhi High Court has also commented that these are progressive law. The new law is progressive. It is better than the earlier law, and therefore the question of going back to what was existing earlier should not be there. And thirdly, otherwise it would make it arbitrary. Then it would be very easy to reopen any case. It would give blanket powers to the authority, which obviously cannot be allowed.
Yes, arbitrarily reopen and then start
Yes,
fishing
so it is-
inquiries.
Yes,
Yes,
it is
yes.
the check which is there in the statute. Even if it is not there in the language, still the courts would interpret it like that to save it from being declared as arbitrary.
So it's a very important message that in spite of deletion and also the situation remains the same. These two judgments of Delhi and Mumbai High Court, they continue to be relevant in the new regime. Probably that is the view of the department also, sir. I feel it is the view.
That situation has not come to appellate level. That will establish, I hope, the same situation.
Yes, sir. Sir, my next issue is, one thing very much talked about in reassessment is the term used, risk management strategy, which is not defined in the Act. Sir, my request to you to kindly explain the audience what is this risk management strategy, how it keeps on changing. It is a dynamic system where probably every year or so the risk management strategy is changed. And this is one, because most of the rules, when they are changed because of the provisions of section 296 probably, the rules have to put before the parliament in the next session. But risk management strategy, whatever changes are made, that has no legislative control. It has no legislative control. It is totally to the discretion of the board. So what is this risk management strategy, sir, if you can explain to the audience?
See, this is a policy matter. I cannot comment on that because this is done at the board level. I will not be able to comment on that. But this is not something, I have not been part of any such group or forum. So me commenting on that may not be appropriate.
Sir, one circular is issued in this regard, 2021, in risk management, in certain criteria are being given. On that basis, that can be covered in that reassessment proceedings.
Yes,
For information.
Venu ma'am has something to add. Yes, so no, the problem is, number one, risk management strategy is not defined in the Act. That is one issue. It is not subject to parliament. There is no control, there is no legislative control over it. And there is feeling in some of the quarters that such unbridled powers to the board is not good. They can arbitrarily change risk management strategies, and doing reopening of the cases on the basis of risk management strategy would be not reasonable in a democratic country. But probably still this new term has lot of probably the space to cover. We will see how risk management strategy is explained to the citizens of the country. Now the next issue is, Mukesh, you want? No. Now, Mukesh, next issue I will like to have answer or your views on this reopening issue. You all know that section 148, the clause A says conduct any inquiry if required. Now what is this 148 capital A, where A is any information which suggests escapement of income, he will conduct inquiry if required. Now my issue is it solely to the discretion or arbitrariness of the assessing officer? He may say, no, the information is sufficient. I don't want to lead to any inquiry further. This is enough. So if required, what does it mean if required? Whether he will have to record some reasons that yes, because of these reasons, I feel there is no further requirement of any inquiry, or he can arbitrarily decide not to conduct any inquiry. Mukesh ji.
Sir, he has to write the reasons satisfied when he is not issuing any notice. 140A, B may, if he want to not to issue any notice to the assessee, he has to record his reason why he is dropping the case. Because if information which he has received from the risk management strategy or any various points, and if he found that this information is not escaping assessment or income assessing, in that case he can drop the case, but he has to write the reasons, in my opinion. What should be?
Yes, sir. What is your view, whether what practice department is proposing to follow?
I think this is a more a legal issue. Most of the time, if you find, it's always like that. If you are taking some action, you need to explain on writing. Like 148, earlier 148, unless it is satisfaction or record. And that section, satisfaction should not be like nothing to do with the case and arbitrarily you open it. I remember one case, I was in audit, so we used to have those files. It was written, CITP has confirmed this addition in the last year, hence I opened because same issue involved. Such reasons will never stand the test of appeal. So, same way, this cannot be, this has to be there because courts have from time to time have already said that if you record something against the assessee, that has to be rationalized, it cannot be discretionary. Discretion has to be used rationally, otherwise it will not stand test of appeal. This is my
I think the discretion, the purpose of conferring a discretion is to, if the facts warrant, if the facts require you consider doing inquiry, if the information is as such that there is no scope of any inquiry, then you can proceed. It can't be an empty formality. And even otherwise, even if we go by the principles of statutory interpretation, it says the reasons are to be there. For every, where the discretion is being exercised, the authority should give the reasons. Even if he is not required, even if the language of this section doesn't prescribe that he has to give reasons, still it is implicit in the provision unless excluded specifically in the provision. So where the question is of the discretion, if the facts warrant and the authority proceeds without doing any inquiry, a question and objection can always be raised that these were the facts and he ought to have made a particular inquiry from this person in a given case. Suppose it is a case of bogus share capital. So he ought to have done some inquiry over there. So in a different case where the information is so specific or the evidence is there, there may be a case where inquiry is not required. It would be only an empty formality.
No, here I will interrupt you. My question is whether he has to write why the inquiry is not required. That is the precise issue, and whether department is forming any SOP that under these parameters inquiry may not be required.
So I think the officer should write, because otherwise it will expose the order to challenge. If he writes it, why he has not gone by the route of inquiry, why he has considered that inquiry is not required, that would make it a better order. Otherwise, it would always be amenable to challenge in any legal proceedings.
And probably we can seek those reasons of not his deciding to inquire the matter.
Yes, we can.
So any SOP in this regard in the department?
So for not like that, for example, he has quoted one example that some bogus share capital is there. And he gets the information from investigation wing that this is to be reopened because this income has escaped assessment. And there is a already court ruling on that. Simply getting information on record and issuing 148 will not suffice.
Yes.
So that shows the real ratio laid down by the honorable courts.
A Bombay High Court judgment is there.
There is a judgment that simply getting information where somebody has given a statement and without making any inquiry, the officer issues a 148, that is not a valid reopening of the case. I think that will be applicable
And
in such
because the involvement of the higher authority is involved in all these stages. So I think that is the balance, check and balance provision which is there, that he has to go to the authority. And if the authority is not satisfied, then obviously...
No, Prakul, there is a difference. If inquiry he is conducting, he has to seek the approval. But if he is dropping means he is not deciding to do any further inquiry, then there is no approval required. So if he's deciding for making further inquiry, the approval is required. So it should have been the otherwise also. Whichever way he decides, there should be approval.
So I think, sir, even in that case, the courts can read it that way also. There is a scope of reading that way also. But in any case, as I mentioned, if the facts warrant an inquiry should be made, and the assessee is challenging, is raising an objection that you ought to make an inquiry, you make an inquiry, and inquiry is not made, I think that would make that order available for a challenge.
No, here I will say that suppose I am assessing officer and I say that because of these reasons I am not making further inquiry. Probably that would suffice in my favor. But if I don't write anything, I have nothing to explain to the court, in that case probably.
Sir, wherever the question of discretion is there, the law is that the authority should justify why in that given facts he has considered not to exercise that power which is available. So if the facts warrant and the higher authority who is reviewing his decision of not conducting inquiry is of the view that this was the case where the inquiry ought to have been conducted, they can interfere with the order. So that it cannot be that he can do it at his whims and fancies, that it is at my discretion, so I don't consider, I don't have time, and I will not conduct inquiry. That cannot be the scenario.
Yes, thank you very much. Sir, you have to add something on this issue.
I just wanted to confirm that only what he said. See, when this proceeding will start, even the CC office, Chief Commissioner office or Principal Chief Commissioner office, mostly this is done in the last month when it's the time barring date. So he's well aware what is the pendency, practical working I'm telling you. The Chief Commissioner will be well aware of the pendency and he has to apply his mind and see whether the officer has taken a right decision or not. If he has taken a right decision, then he will allow it, that let there be filing. But if he is not taking a right decision, then naturally he will have to conduct an inquiry.
Thank you, sir. Then we again move on to the faceless regime, and the timer has started probably. We are left with still 10-15 minutes. Sir, with this National Faceless Assessment Center and National Faceless Appeal Center, uniformity in application of law was expected. But what is seen that in spite of centralization, still the different assessment orders are having different application of law, and one glaring example is that ESIPF law, which was amended 3615A, which was amended by Finance Act 21, whether it is prospective or retrospective. Some of the appeal orders received in favor of the assessee holding that this amendment is prospective only. Some of the appeal orders said, no, it is retrospective. So that uniformity is still missing. What is the reason, and what department is going for ensuring uniformity in application of law, at least at the national level? Anything department is proposing in this regard?
See, this year action plan target talks about capacity building seminars. I think this is relating to capacity building only, that no injustice should be done to any assessee. We are holding seminars, and I will prefer that some of you, if at a forum level, send it some representation, we are able to send it to the NAFAC, so that when this is flagged by them, and some circular is issued by the NAFAC for application over all over India, so that will, I think, solve the problem. But again, like two issues you have mentioned, there may be some issues like we had earlier one case of cooperative societies in Kerala. People were very enthusiastic about that, and 20-page order, everybody was copying it. I saw one order, I was very impressed when I read it, then somebody told me last year also I did the same order. So what I'm saying, these things will be there, but I think if you flag some cases where there is a variation, anomalies are there, we can make a submission to the NAFAC and bring in their notice so that there is a more uniformity in this situation.
So what do you feel the quality of assessments has improved? Because otherwise the success rate of the department in appeals was very dismal. Very low success rate reaching up to tribunal or high court level. The success rate of the department. So what is the position, quality of assessments, whether that has improved? The percentage of success of the department is improving before the appellate authorities? or department is maintaining any such data that after the faceless, the success rate is improving?
After my joining, we had seminars and I started assessing the performance of the various charges. There's sometime they're showing 34% improvement in the quality. Normally, in common parlance, we mean how much additions we have made. Because that is the old standard we are following. If you have made a 1 crore addition, it's a quality case. If you have not made any addition, this is not a quality case. My request to all my officers in the Rajasthan is that quality means you are passing a error-free assessment.
Very right,
This
sir,
is
very
my,
right.
and not, I'm not, this is not something I had devised the term. The board has written in the action plan target. If you read over action plan target, it is written there, quality does not mean making an addition. Quality means you are passing a reasonable order which should stand the test of appeal. And if the no addition is coming, I tell my officers openly that if some wrong information because of the system has come to you, verify, take maximum precautions. Like somebody says, we have one case, one officer told us in the seminar, sir, there is one information case has been opened by Jao that he has deposited some 2 crore rupees in his bank account. And that is to be for which 147 has been issued. Now that 2 crore we are not finding in the bank account where it is deposited. There will be number of cases with you, some instances, because I have got a very limited exposure to that because junior officers are having these cases. So in such case, I'm saying, go to the officer, to the range head, go to the PCIT, pass a reasonable order, give the reasons for that, and file the proceeding. If required, my approval is required as a CCIT, I will give approval in all these cases. Because this is required. So quality, I take it from that error-free. Yes, there is some improvement, but I have called for the information from my officers here, and they say they will be giving orders also. I will also be examining those orders. If the quality means addition, then I will not treat it as a quality. We can only start administrative guidance to the officers, and seminars is one such step towards that, so that the officers are, see, most of our officers, when you must be talking to them, they say, otherwise it will come on me. See, somebody has to take a stand somewhere. Because we are dealing with the cream of the people, and if they suffer, this is pitiable on our part.
No, it is
I
nice
think
to
we
hear.
need to improve upon
Probably
that.
it deserves.
And we are doing our best.
It deserves applause. Now, sir, we have compiled certain issues, which I will read only because the time left is very less. The procedural issues in faceless regime, difficulties in adjournments, which you have understood. There are cut-paste errors in number of cases. The issue is not at all there. Still, it is finding mention in the assessment orders or even in the appeal orders. Probably Mukesh ji has something to say on this, or otherwise we will just... Neither, cut paste, no, this is only, we are mentioning that it is happening.
See, I told you one example before the faceless came. Society's cases in Kerala, 20-page order, I was impressed, but when I came to know last year also the same order was passed.
Yes, sir.
Most of you must have been experienced this when you were appearing earlier before the officers. Same type of on the same issue order will be passed. But cut paste, sometime, wherever I find a mistake, I tell to my PCITs also, please issue a circular of those points immediately. So that there is a wider knowledge of the officer that this is wrong. This is not something they are following any circular or they are having any defense of law. This is something administratively it has to be handled. And for that, you need to bring in the knowledge of the higher authorities so that immediate circular is issued by them. We will also flag it and will send to the NFAC also if you give such instances so that this is minimized or at least.
So next issue is that in video conferencing, maybe at our assessment stage particularly, the officer who is there in the video conferencing, many a times it is found that he is not aware of the basic facts of the case. So that makes it a routine, a mere formality. He is not aware of the basic facts. He only listens what we say. So that is not a meaningful video conferencing. Then, sir, there is no mechanism through which application for stay of demand can be filed before appellate center, sir. Because as Supreme Court has said, Rajasthan High Court has said, that appellate authorities, when appeal is pending with them, they can grant a stay. And we have been applying stay when it was not faceless. But that mechanism is not there.
That functionality can be created on portal.
Yes, sir. So that is, then there is long pendency of appeals since commencement of this faceless appeals. There is a long pendency.
See, I go by example. In Rajasthan only, we have got 10 CAT appeals. So I was, going to have a meeting of video conference of member admin is taking of all the CAT appeals throughout India. And this is the subject why there is a lesser disposal by them. We are following it up.
And so there is no mechanism to request for early hearing. Previously it was there because of certain reasons. If any particular appellant wants a case to be fixed out of turn, there was some SOP was also prescribed by the board. Probably that is not there presently. Then as one of the audience mentioned that there is no mechanism for 154 in appellate orders. There is nothing in the portal available through which the any error which is found in the order of the appellate authority, the 154 can be moved through that same portal.
See, there will be a number of things lacking because when you are developing something,
No,
there's
no,
going to
we
be
fully agree, sir.
So my request is that please flag these issues.
No, this
Give
is,
us,
we will,
so that we flag to the NFA also, because you keep on, just now I showed one letter to you from the NAFAC saying that please ensure that principle of natural justice are applied. Then the letter date is December 20th. So
Yes.
that means they are aware of it and they are sensitizing the officer again and again. Please don't do that. And if you pinpoint such cases to us at appropriate level, we will be able to better administratively handle that so that these such instances are minimized and the SSCs and the council do not suffer unnecessarily at this. Because valuable time of the council is also wasted. So that we can minimize in that case.
And two more issues, sir. Additional evidences which are submitted in the appeal. The status of additional evidences is not made clear, whether admitted, whether sent to assessing officer, whether remand report is received. The copy of the remand report is not made available to the appellants. So these issues are there in the appeal portal, and probably this needs to be taken care of. Otherwise, it will be a...
I will go to the first issue you told me earlier. That one was the issue that officer is not aware of the file when he's doing a VC.
Yes, sir.
That is very relevant. See,
Sir,
grievance-
I have a
grievance
case
mechanism has
where
not been taken
officers...
away. Grievance mechanism is there. I'm not saying complaint against the officer, but you can put forward the facts. Otherwise, seniors will never come to know what is happening at the ground level. See, I saw somebody writes to me or I come to, for example, KCC is there in our system. Sometime approval of the principal commissioner is to be taken. So when the case came for, before the principal commissioner, when I was holding the charge, so I saw that in the case history, the officer issuing a stereotype questionnaire. You must be receiving such questionnaires. Yeah. Sometimes they do not have a connection with the SOPs issued by the department. So my request is not complaining against the officer that he is useless. I'm not saying that. But in a polite words also, if you flag those things to the senior level, we will be able to take a remedial action. See, by simply sitting on that, okay, my assessment is done, matter is over, I will go to appeal, that may not. Because if you see, until unless you challenge a practice, if it is wrong, that will be considered as correct. This is the problem with what I have been saying. In most of the government working, you find somebody has done injustice, you simply tolerate and move on. With the result that person thinks, I was correct. He never reported to me that I was wrong. So my request in polite words, there are so many platforms, bring in our knowledge so that we can improve. We are part of the society only ultimately.
No, sir, that is
That is my
admitted.
request. Please flag those things at the highest level so that we can improve upon that.
And in appeal, repetitive notices are sent. In spite of the submissions having uploaded, the repetitive notices are being sent. That
Sometimes-
creates a lot of confusion whether that uploaded material is available to the officer or not.
Yes.
That creates a lot of confusion.
It
and
happens.
lot of wastage of time and energy.
No, this is a systematic problem because officers are not so well acquainted being a a new regime. One example I tell you, one of the officers in seminar was saying, Jao jurisdiction officer has uploaded the reasons, but these are not visible to me. This is the one such instance. So then I told him, you tell him to again upload it. Same thing must be happening with the CIT appeal, because he's not able to see your submissions. So he's asking you to file it again. That is a system-related problem. I think with a great speed it will stabilize. By next year or so, you will not be having such frequent problems.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, audience, for giving a patient hearing to the panelists. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for their time, for the benefit of the participants here. Thank you very much, all the. I hand over the mic to the compeer.
A big round of applause for all the panelists and the moderator for such an enriching session on new reassessment and faceless assessment regime.
We thank you all for making us aware of the opportunities and challenges ushered by the new developments in the tax administration. Discussions with reference to comparisons of situations prevailing in India vis-a-vis other countries was really meaningful. We thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. There are two announcements before we move on to our next session. Firstly, 2 of our members have lost their mobile phones, so if anybody of you finds them, kindly deposit them at the backstage, or please report to Lokesh Kasat sir on an immediate basis. And secondly, we are also running live on the YouTube channel of ICAI Jaipur. Moving on to our next technical session for the day, Manas, I recently read in the newspaper कि एक company थी जो bankrupt हो गई, and it was found out that it was undergoing various fraudulent transactions with fictitious borrowers.
रुचिका, मैंने भी कुछ ऐसा ही पढ़ा था. But do you know, ऐसे केसेस के अंदर fraud detection के लिए forensic accountants का बड़ा ही major role होता है.
ये चार्टेड अकाउंटेंट्स तो सुना था, बट ये फॉरेंसिक अकाउंटेंट्स कौन होते हैं?
अरे भाई, फॉरेंसिक अकाउंटेंट्स का रोल समझाने के लिए ही तो हमारा नेक्स्ट टेक्निकल सेशन है. सो विदाउट फर्दर अडो, लेट्स मूव ऑन टू आवर नेक्स्ट टेक्निकल सेशन ऑफ द डे. इमर्जिंग फ्रॉड रिस्क्स एंड साइबर क्राइम्स, रोल ऑफ फॉरेंसिक अकाउंटेंट्स.
To begin with, I'd like to invite on dais the moderator for the session, CA Dr. Abhishek Sharma sir. Mr. Sharma is a PhD in forensic accounting and auditing and is a certified forensic auditor of ICAI. He has an experience of 18 years. We welcome you, sir.
Moving on, we invite our first panelist for the session, CA Lokesh Kasat sir. Mr. Kasat is an ex-chairman of Jaipur branch of ICAI and has an experience of more than 14 years in the field of audit, taxation and finance. We welcome you, sir.
May I now invite our second panelist, CA Surbhi Jain ma'am. Ms. Surbhi holds a vast experience in the field of IT audits, system audits, cyber security, governance risk, and compliance. She's currently working at Deloitte. We are pleased to have you, ma'am.
I now take the pleasure to call upon our next panelist for the session, CA Sandeep Baldawa, sir. Mr. Baldawa is a certified fraud examiner and certified information systems auditor. He is currently a partner in EY. We welcome you, sir.
Lastly, I invite Dr. Vikas Pathak, sir. Mr. Pathak is the Deputy Inspector General, Rajasthan Police, and has specialization in cyber crimes. We are honored to have you, sir.
I request CA Paras Jain and CA Shubham Maharshi to please come up to felicitate Dr. Vikas Pathak sir with a bouquet and memento.
I now request CA Shivam Agarwal and CA Naresh Motwani to kindly come up and felicitate CA Sandeep Baldawa sir with a bouquet and memento.
May I now invite CA Rajat Rathod sir and CA Shubham Vijay sir to felicitate CA Surbhi Jain ma'am with a bouquet and memento.
Next, I request CA Udesh Ghasolia and CA Daulat Saini to kindly come up and felicitate CA Lokesh Kasat sir with a bouquet and memento. I also request CA Mohit Chaturvedi to kindly come up and felicitate.
Lastly, I request CA Nishant Bharadwaj to come up to felicitate CA Dr. Abhishek Sharma sir with a bouquet and memento.
We also request CA Dheeraj Borad to kindly come up and felicitate. We are extremely honored to have you all amongst us today. We now request the session moderator to commence the session. Over to you, Abhishek, sir.
Good evening, all of you. I know that last session of the day, it's been very difficult to continue for the whole day since started in the this windy morning, I should say. So this is a technical session, and we are here to discuss some emerging fraud risks and cyber crimes. And yes, of course, we will discuss the role of forensic accountants for these cyber crimes. Before starting on the session, I just want to give a small example that how cyber crimes or how this thing happens. Because I lost my phone just half an hour before. Someone have taken it out from my pocket. Immediately I rushed out to the mobile store and just blocked my SIM. So I got late in coming to the session now, just coming to the mobile store and just called to the banks and all for the mobile apps which I was using for the banks. Just called to the customer care immediately just now 5 minutes back and blocked my all accounts and cards. So in this session we will discuss detail about this topic, this cyber frauds and crimes and all these things. So I once again welcome all of you. Just shared one example. So today's session we are having among with us Dr. Vikas Pathak sir, who belongs to Indian Police Service and presently is Deputy IG of Rajasthan Police Department. And sir is having a specialization of cyber crime. So I will also take personal advice from sir for the things which have been happened with me just before the session. We welcome you in the session, sir. Thank you very much for coming. Despite of your busy schedule, and sir, I have cancelled one outstation official meeting also for our session. Thank you very much, sir. Our another learned speaker of the session is Mr. Baldava. And sir is a senior partner in EY, and what I should say about sir, he is having a tremendous knowledge and expertise about the forensic investigation and forensic accounting. Sir is also associated with the ICI board, who is involved in the drafting of draft exposure of forensic accounting and investigation board. So I again welcome you, sir, in the session. Amongst us, we are having CA Lokesh Kasat ji, who is having more than 15 years of expertise in the accounts and audits and these forensic matters. We welcome you, Lokesh Kasat ji. Lokesh ji have also been served as the chairman of the Jaipur branch. Thank you, Lokesh ji, for joining. We also have among us CA Surbhi Jain. Surbhi Jain is presently working with the Deloitte, and she is expert of cyber security. So we'll also take her advice for, I have lost my phone and all these things. So friend, today's session is all about the financial frauds, risk, and all about this cyber crimes. It can be happened with anyone without any pre-notice or without any prior information. So that's why the role of a forensic accountant or investigator plays a very vital and important role, right? So the session flow will go like this. First, after my brief introduction, I will hand over the session to our key speaker, Mr. Baldava sir, who will deliberate for 30 minutes about the role of a forensic accountant presently, what is the expectation of regulator, right? What are the possible future opportunities for chartered accountants in this particular field, right? And how forensic audit goes. So that will be discussed by Baldava sir. Then we will have an open panel discussion in which we will have we will ask some expert questions from our expert panelists, Dr. Pathak sir, Lokesh Kasat sir, and Surbhi ma'am. So friend, let me tell you that we all have heard from childhood of our CA profession that chartered accountant are a watchdog and not a bloodhound. But once at the time when I was doing research for completion of my PhD degree in the forensic accounting and investigation, I came to know that chartered accountant could also be a bloodhound. When I have just gone through the various examples of forensic investigation and accounting which have been taken place. So nowadays, sir will explain better than me, but I just want to say that for nowadays, it's not right to say chartered accountant is a watchdog, but I should say that sometimes we have to work as a bloodhound also. So for any potential fraud risk or any potential financial risk we are seeing in the business, then it's our liability to report the same with our statutory financial report, right? The important word I want to use here is a red flag. So what is the red flag? How it is to be identified? What is the role of a statutory auditor in identifying a red flag? How it should be reported? And if it's not reported, and later on in the financial investigation, it is being found that there was some red flag in the financial statements, and chartered accountant who was doing the statutory audit was not able to identify at the time of doing audit. Then what should be the consequences on the chartered accountant for not identifying that red flags? That all we will discuss in today's session. You know that financial fraud can be of any type, like bank fraud, check fraud, some misappropriation of fund, and different things. That all we will discuss here. So I just, at this point of time, I just want to invite Baldava sir to take his session, and we'll ask technical person kindly run his PPT. So meanwhile, your PPT is getting started. You can start your session. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prakash Sharma ji, for inviting me for this session. Thanks to the Jaipur branch management team for inviting me for this session. So it's a pleasure to be here. I think looks like all the previous speakers have scared people enough. So thinking that all jobs will go away because of faceless assessments, because of technology disruption, etc., etc. So I think people are, gone. So maybe you should call them back, because through forensic you can get all your jobs back in the next 1 hour. Because there is so much of opportunity available in this space that you can make sure that for irrespective of which technology is coming in, what disruption is coming in, whether algo is coming in, faceless assessment is coming in, I think you'll always be in business. I have seen that over the last 25 years. So I think we'll learn something that's happening in the current environment. We'll start with first understanding what kind of changes are happening in our environment from a fraud and a governance perspective, and how potentially the government and the agencies are already far ahead of all of us in terms of what they are doing and how we need to pick up pace, both in terms of understanding what's happening in terms of frauds, as well as not becoming victims of frauds. A lot of us as chartered accountants, we are seeing continuously we are becoming victims of frauds because we are not understanding what is happening. Like he rightly said, there are red flags that are seen, but we are not picking up those red flags. We are not following through on those red flags, and that's also leading to an issue. Also, over a period of time, what has happened is we have so much of aversion towards what's happening on the technology front. We think that technology is taking care of everything, but technology is also written by humans at the end of the day. So there are gaps in technology as well, and we'll discuss how those gaps can be identified so that you don't become victims of fraud. So I think while that comes up, I think I'll start with today any newspaper that you flip on a daily basis, or any financial magazine that you flip, or any media presentation that you see. What you find is every day some new fraud is getting reported. I think just day before yesterday there was another large fraud reported. Marquee investors, marquee sort of backup, supposed to be more than $1 billion valuation. And then suddenly, the CEO went on LinkedIn and said that, oh, we had an error of, judgment. So like that, you're seeing every day some case or the other being reported in the media. Then you're also seeing every second day different government authorities taking action vis-a-vis different corporates or individuals for instances of fraud, whether it is SEBI, whether it is SFIO, whether it is Competition Commission of India, whether it is Enforcement Directorate, whether it is CBI, whether it is Economic Offences Wing. I mean, you can name any agency, income tax, DRI, everywhere. I think today you see that there is a lot of action happening on financial crimes. Now, why that is again important for us to understand is that all there, and there is a belief that in every financial crime that happens, there has to be a chartered accountant somewhere involved in the process. That unfortunately is the mindset with which most of the investigation agencies move. So it's important for us to understand what is happening and also how they are sort of addressing these issues. Today, if we look at each of the agencies, whether it is income tax, whether it is SEBI, whether it is SFIO, all of them today have advanced analytics implemented within their operations to identify red flags and then follow through red flags. Let's look at a few examples. Insider trading. How many of you have potentially heard about the insider trading cases that are happening? Raise of hands. Very few of you. I think you should follow, because that's a big area of practice going forward. The way I think the bounty has been increased by SEBI, more and more cases of investigation will come on the insider trading side. So what SEBI is doing is they have implemented a module wherein on a daily basis they are tracking abnormal trade. So what is an abnormal trade? Let's say Abhishek generally doesn't deal in the shares of AU Bank, now suddenly buys shares of AU Bank, 10,000 shares, and within 3 days AU Bank announces that they acquired another bank, and then the share price doubles. He sells the shares, and then through that I think he makes substantial profit. So what they are doing is they're tracking and identifying these abnormal transactions, and once they identify the abnormal transactions, then they are identifying, did Abhishek trade based on some insider information? Now how are they tracking that? They again implemented technology through which they will identify Abhishek was in touch with who all. So while he has lost his phone, they have in the back end all the access to the CDR records and all. So they will definitely, even if he says that he has lost his phone in the conference, doesn't matter. From the back end, they will pull out to whom all he called, who called him, who was he touch with. And through that, they will link ultimately with somebody at the bank who had the information about the transaction, and then they will initiate proceedings against Abhishek. So that's the process that is happening, wherein they are tracking abnormal trades, linking it to an individual, linking it to insider information, and based on that, initiating the proceedings. So that's how each of the agencies are operating. If you look at Competition Commission of India, how many of you have done work around antitrust law or the competition law? 1, 2. Again, I think a lot of people are missing the opportunity, huge opportunity in this area. The antitrust law and the competition cases will increase continuously in India, and there is a lot of opportunity for chartered accountants to contribute over there on multiple fronts, right from economic angle to doing reviews, to doing investigations. There are multiple things involved. So what Competition Commission of India is doing is, for a long period of time, generally between 6 months to a year, they will collect data on the ground in terms of what's happening. Let's say if it is cement industry, they'll first collect data on the ground within cement industry, let's say within Jaipur, what is happening, who are people connected with each other, how the cement people representatives in Jaipur are meeting at a particular location, and immediately after the meeting next day, the prices are increasing for the whole industry. So like that they are tracking. They are also tracking who are the people who are actually meeting and then doing these discussions. So when after 6 months or a year, when they are launching dawn raids and they are coming to the corporate officers or the regional officers, they exactly know what information to ask for. So they are not doing a blind raid today. They exactly know what information they need to ask for. They are asking, I need this person's laptop, I need this person's mobile phone, I need this shared drive data, and please provide me backup. And all of them are today equipped in doing computer forensic reviews, which means taking the electronic data, whether on phone, server, laptops, capturing that data, analyzing that data, and identifying evidence that indicates non-compliance to the competition law. So that's again example of how Competition Commission is, working in this area. Again, a lot of us, we don't know that this is, happening over there. Very few of us know. There's a lot of opportunity for all of us to play a role over there, including helping organizations prepare on do's and don'ts with regard to compliance with the competition, law. Then if you look at, again, SFIO and ROC, a lot of us today, sort of think that SFIO is not, sort of monitoring information, or ROC is not monitoring information. Again, they have technology in the backend. Through technology, they are identifying red flags. There is also a backend connection between different departments, interchange of data that is, happening. So if somebody has filed one data as part of one return with ROC and another data, and I'll give you a classic example that came through one investigation, where quantitative details are provided both in the Companies Act annual return as well as income tax annual, return, right? So when this was compared, there was some discrepancy that was, noted. So what was happening is, for Companies Act, they are submitting one set of data. For income tax, they are submitting another set of data, thinking that quantitative data nobody will match, but what people will match is the financial data. But the system picked that up, identified that as an issue, and the investigation was launched. When the investigation was launched, it was clearly identified that data in one of the return was, incorrect, and then there was an intent behind it, and that's how the case was launched. So that's again example of, ROC. Then if you look at income tax again today has equipped themselves. They have a dedicated investigation arm. They also carrying, raids at dawn raids, and then identifying evidence that will help them in doing assessments faster. They are looking at data from different sources. All of us think that WhatsApp, if we exchange data on WhatsApp, nobody can, access that, but that's incorrect. The moment they have access to your mobile phone, there is a methodology through which you can extract the data on your device or restore your account through your password, and then get the data from the WhatsApp as well. So if you think that through WhatsApp, if you are doing something, it will not be caught, I think the technology is advanced enough to identify the evidence through WhatsApp as well. And it's all done in a legal way so that it can stand in a court of law. So what is happening with income tax is, they have several, and this is again an opportunity for all of us, they have several firms empaneled with them to undertake investigation, undertake seizing of data, undertake analysis of data, and helping them with assessment in a faster way. For example, you have gone and sort of collected data of Tally or SAP and any other software for 5 years. It takes obviously time for them to analyze. They are rather using CA firms to analyze that data quickly, again using technology, analytical tools, and identifying the issue and evidence directly instead of doing it indirectly. How do I move the slides? So every, I think, agency that you can think of today has access to technology. I think a lot of us probably don't have access to as much technology and tools as each of the agencies have. They have budgets, and they are using it in the right way. And these are some of the examples that are there in the public domain. Is there a slide change? So I think if we see, I think we discussed about other agencies. Now if you see here from MCA, SEBI, RBI, even RBI. So RBI is also, monitoring what is, happening in different banks, financial institutions, NBFCs. And through that, I think they are again taking, action where they are finding issues, use of technology, use of data analytics. So I think we'll just So I think we discussed the SFIO, ED. ED, I think, is again interesting. So I don't know how many of you are again familiar that PMLA was amended in 2018. So how many of you are aware? Prevention of only again few people. A lot of opportunities, I think you're all missing out. So Prevention of Money Laundering Act was amended in 2018 to include Section 447 of the Companies Act. So earlier PMLA, generally all of our understanding was if somebody is doing a huge money laundering scheme, sending money outside India, coming back, hawala, or a lot of other schemes, then or narcotics, drugs, etc., that will come under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. But the way now the act is amended and then different sections added to the schedule, including section 447 of the Companies Act, even a normal fraud, a corporate fraud, or a fraud that is defined under the Companies Act comes under PMLA. So the schemes that normally people used to think that, oh, it's a issue, even if something happens, I may pay some penalty and get away. That's not the scenario now. And I'll show you some example how that has changed. Today under PMLA, you can be prosecuted for a financial fraud as well, and not just the money laundering related fraud, because they amended the provisions of the act. CBI, again, a lot of us think that what is CBI doing over here? I think in all the large bank fraud cases, CBI is involved. They again have implemented and introduced huge technology in the back end to carry out these reviews. They have access to data which none of us have, and we work very closely with some of these agencies. So any bank statement that you need, which you and me as a private person can't get as part of the investigation, even if you are appointed by a bank, the second bank will not give the data. But when it is an agency, they get access to all the data. They need support. So they have access, but they need support. So who can provide support? We can provide support if we clearly understand how some of the fraud schemes work in different industries. They need that knowledge in order to crack the case, in order to identify the evidence and strengthen the case. So again, there is a huge opportunity, over there. So this is an example that I, talked about insider trading. It's all in public domain now, but I think in the back end again they are improving, further. So what are the fraud risks that we are seeing, and what is the new normal? I think I'm not covering the normal frauds that happen because I'm assuming that all of us are, aware of those. So let's understand what's happening. What are the new kickback models that are coming up, where the corruption is, happening? And corruption is not just in public sector, by the way, as we generally think. It's equivalent or more in the private sector as well in different scenarios, including procurement, supply chain, distribution, awarding of agency, etc., etc. It's there equally in the private sector as well. Again, a huge opportunity. So what are the new models that are appearing? Earlier, people you asked for cash, deposit in bank account, deposit in relatives account, credit card payment, or sponsoring of a trip, or a gold coin, or a jewelry, etc. The new model is crypto, and people are asking in dollars because the amounts have increased. Very difficult to carry Indian, money. So let's take, dollars. And in several cases, they are asking the money to be given outside India. So I have my son studying in so-and-so place. Instead of giving me over here, please organize for the money over there. Now you need to understand these issues, because that is where you will be able to find where the fraud is happening. For that, you need to study the pattern. You need to understand where the possibility of fraud is there, and based on that, I think you need to identify the evidence of where the fraud is happening. Then gifts and events to enhance sales. This is very common in several industries. But in certain industry where there are regulations, and especially if there is a government angle involved, it becomes an issue under the Prevention of Corruption Act. For example, in pharma industry, if you are making any sort of payments beyond what is defined under the law, then that will be considered as bribe. That will be considered as violation of PMLA, because that is again added under the PMLA Act. So earlier the angle was that we would only consider this as a potential issue if somebody even asks. At worst, what will happen is it will be disallowed under Income Tax Act, and then we can proceed. Right? That was the thought process that we had till now. But now with the new angle, it's not just the income tax angle, it is also the PMLA angle, because what they are saying is, since you routed through a third party, and that third party did something else, in your books you recorded something else, those are proceeds of crime, and then those can be prosecuted under the PMLA. So doing these activities is no more a normal non-compliance with the Companies Act or Income Tax Act. It is going beyond. Obviously, normally these cases get picked up only when the value is high. I'm not saying that for every few thousand, few lakh cases this will be picked up, but where the amount involved is high, and I'll show you some examples where it is high in some of the industry, there it is being picked up by Enforcement Directorate as well, beyond the normal area. Marketing communications versus compliance requirements. Now some of the regulators, including SEBI, now are monitoring what companies are doing in the social media. There is an example wherein a company went on record, they acquired a small entity. So the marketing head and brand head of that company went on record, called a press conference and said that this is a marquee investment, this is a strategic investment, it will put us into a different trajectory, it will take this business to a different level. And then what happened is SEBI discovered a potential insider trading, matter around that time. And then when they asked that, okay, in this case, this person had access to this information, so you should be, sort of prosecuted under the insider trading law. So the company went back and said that, no, it's a very small acquisition, so it is not a material for us. So then they pulled out this data, which was picked up by their software, and said that, okay, by the way, your people at the CXO level said that this is a strategic acquisition, critical execution, and then the share price next day, went up immediately after an announcement. So how do you say it's not an insider trading? So again, do we have understanding, especially if you are in corporate or advising corporates, what's happening between the two hands, right? So does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? If they are not capturing that, then you have an issue wherein one hand is doing something and the second hand will be caught because they don't know what the first hand is, doing. So that's another, example. So then I think if you look at not acting on anonymous whistleblower complaints, so that's another classic, area, wherein what we are seeing is earlier, if a whistleblower complaint is received, your client comes and asks you, oh, I received a whistleblower complaint, so what should I do? But it is anonymous. So your advice normally would be that if it is anonymous without any name, then you may not act on it. But in today's scenario, even if the complaint is anonymous, but it has facts, you are supposed to investigate. If you are not investigating, tomorrow if that issue blows up, then you will be held responsible for it. Another big area of opportunity, because the whistleblowing complaints in India has increased, and there are a lot of whistleblowing complaints coming in, but several people are not aware that they need to investigate anonymous whistleblower complaints as well. Then if you look at preparing Excel projections to match required loan covenants, etc. Earlier, people used to do reverse calculation. Maybe now also in certain cases, some of us, potentially do reverse calculation. Oh, this is the loan required, this is the DP, this is the margin required. Based on that, do reverse calculation, go back and then submit to the banker. Now that is considered fraud. You can be prosecuted. It's misleading a bank and misleading a financial institution. And there are cases where people have been prosecuted, including the chartered accountant. So please be aware that earlier scenario was different. Today's scenario is, different. Another example over there is, in a lot of cases, people file higher claims, assuming that they will not get full claim, so that my expense is, let's say, 100, let me file a claim of 150, because they'll anyway reject something for X reason or the other, at least I'll get my 100 back. But that's not again correct now, because a lot of contracts include clauses that if you have misrepresented directly, indirectly, as chartered accountant or certified that amount, then you are responsible and the entire amount is rejected and a case can be filed against you. And these are not theoretical examples anymore. These are real life examples wherein people are not understanding the gravity of the situation, wherein people are certifying because they are thinking that, oh, it's there, nobody would, sort of check. And at worst, what will happen? They will reduce the amount. It's not just case of reduction of amount, it's a case of misrepresentation. That's how I think it is being interpreted now. We are safe from digital frauds and cyber risks. I think Abhishek thought so, that he can leave his phone, Jaipur is his, but I think none of us is safe from cyber frauds and fraud risk, including several of you as CA firms or practicing chartered accountants. How many of us take care that the kids who are carrying hard disks, data, etc., moving in train, auto, etc., whether those disks are encrypted, not encrypted? Nobody is, I think, looking at that. So please again go back and check what is happening with the data that you have, which belongs to the clients, not just you, it belongs to the clients. And believe me, the data can be, sort of anywhere in no time, and in today's context, it is online in no time. Inconsistent disclosures to various regulators. I think we discussed this a few minutes back. There are multiple examples where regulators are picking up some data submitted to MCA, some data to tax, some data in some other forum, some data to bank. Once it is mapped, there are differences identified, and then people are being asked to explain the difference. Otherwise, it's treated as misrepresentation to the relevant authority. Then inaccurate responses to regulators and enforcement agencies. There was a concept of buying time. चलो अभी ये लिख देते हैं, बाद में देखते हैं. Right? So let's buy time by writing something. So I think people are not buying, they are comparing what you are writing now, comparing then what you are submitting. Let's say a lot of times people become innovative, thinking that these are the 5 questions they have asked. Let's give partial responses to those, so that I think we can be safe. But in the back end, they may have more information, which you may not have sort of thought about. Then they come back and say, so the initial response that you file is on record, and you can be prosecuted for inaccurate response. Fake it till you make it. This is my, I think, most interesting sort of a caption that I have been following for the last 25 years. It was there earlier in the traditional businesses, and I'm sure all of you would have seen, at least who come 20, 25 years into the profession, any new shop used to open, either a jewelry or a cloth shop and all. They will bring in fake customers, right? There'll be queues outside that shop for the first 15, 20 days to demonstrate that there are customers coming in, so people take interest and come into the shop. That exact process is happening today in the online platforms and several other platforms, wherein people fake it till they make it. And that's how you find that a lot of cases that you're seeing, the platforms are sort of collapsing because the entire model was based on fake it till you make it. There are several genuine platforms. There are several genuine business models that are there, but at the same time there are others also. You should have the ability to segregate between the two. I think in the first session, Mr. Gupta mentioned that BSc sort of facilitates in that process, identifying sort of which one is a genuine SME, which one is not a genuine SME. Again, a huge opportunity for all of us to do these reviews and identify which one is the right one and which one is the not the right one. A lot of us think, and then I think Anil talked about, would accounting go away, would things go away? At least my belief is nothing will go away. Common sense will always remain, debit credit will always remain, systems will come, but I think systems will also operate based on certain parameters. Of course, what will happen is certain things that can be done through technology. For example, income tax returns going forward may be filed directly by the app, especially if you are a salaried person. Take the data, take your savings, take your stock, and then they can sort of do the assessment and send you back if you have any queries. That's possible. But whether complete, I think debit credit will go away, the answer is no. If you have the understanding of the business, if you have the understanding of how things move, I think you will still continue to remain relevant, provided you specialize in an area. So what are the frauds that you should watch out for in 2023? First thing I would say is cyber frauds, and we have discussed enough about that, and my colleagues will discuss more. Evergreening and window dressing of books, this will come back into picture because of the situation that we are in. So next 3 years, there will be, I think, some bit of disruption that will happen. People will have to maintain their margins, people will have to maintain their revenue, people will have to maintain their costs, right? So there would be a possibility of window dressing, so you should be watchful about that and make sure that you understand if there is something happening where you are auditing and then you are signing off on the books. Diversion of funds due to potential stress and liquidity scenario, that again would be back. I think it reduced over a period of time. The expectation is that it will be back in vogue in the current year and next year. Circular transactions. Now this is something that I think a lot of auditors are failing to pick up, wherein there are parties, both related parties on the purchase side and sale side. So first a purchase transaction happen, wherein you pay, let's say, 100 crore to the party for supplying certain goods. No goods are supplied in reality, but the amount is paid through bank so that it looks a genuine transaction. Then there is a sale that is happening, which is also a dummy sale, and this amount that went out is coming back as your receivable, and it's helping you improve your turnover. It's happening again in different industries for different reasons. Now why in a lot of cases when we do investigations, when we look at why potentially auditors are not able to pick this up, is because all of us have become more compartmentalized in our thought process and in our approach. Somebody who is doing purchase is doing only purchase. Somebody who is doing sale is only doing sale. There is no mapping of vendor master versus the sales master to see if there are common parties appearing in the both cases. Very few people are doing that. Very few people are doing the end-to-end review of the transaction, because you have a team member who did purchase last year, so he's perfect in that. Let me send that team member to do purchase again, because it will save on time. So the same person is doing purchase, same person is doing sales over a period of time. There is no mapping that is happening. We are not able to detect the fraud that is over there. GS2 input tax credit, believe me, this will be the biggest area of focus this year across industries, not just one industry, because there are a lot of examples which are noted because of the circular transactions and various other reasons. What is happening over here is there is a fake potentially transaction. Obviously the input tax credit on that is fake. So you have multiple complications over there. Chartered accountants again can play a role over there. Income tax will come into picture, because income tax will say that you received the money, this transaction is genuine, you are not able to show me, so I'll tax the whole income, but there is no expense. So which means on the entire amount you pay tax. GST would say that no credit, because there is no genuine transaction, so you will not get credit. This you have declared it, so please pay me the amount. So you will have to go back and demonstrate whether somebody else did the fraud, because of which company is suffering. So input tax credit would be a big area. undisclosed related party transactions. So related party transactions, SEBI has come out with a new circular, but there are still a lot of undisclosed related party transactions. So how that works is the law defines certain parties as related parties. But then there are others who are not necessarily defined as related party, but technically are related, party because they are either known to you or driver's, spouse or somebody else. And there are enough cases that are there in public domain, so you need to be watchful about those. Insider trading that we already talked about. Moonlighting and impersonation in the services industry is a big issue, especially IT and financial services, wherein one person is doing multiple jobs. It's not just the question of additional salary that the person is making. It's also a question of potential sharing of confidential data, misuse of that data, and several other issues that will come in. Impersonation is somebody is giving interview, but somebody else is joining. And it's happening in a big way, something again that we can help organizations restrict. M&A transactions without any rationale, another area where we can play a role. If a M&A is happening, why it is happening, why are you acquiring a company, how is the funding happening, is there a back-end adjustment that is happening because of the funding, something that you should be watchful about. Can you move to the next slide? So while I think the technology, resolves, itself. So the next topic that I want to, cover is examples, from the public domain. So how many of you followed the issue that happened in the insurance industry on the GST input tax credit? Anybody followed that? Only one person. I think a lot of you, I guess, have so many opportunities, available. So in this case, the way the model worked is you have something called a IRDA approved commission. Then you have something called a overriding commission. So now overriding commission can't be brought in the books because it is not technically legal. So you have the insurance industry which was giving 20%, let's say as an example, insurance as the IRDA approved insurance, and there was another 20% paid as a ORC commission, but it can't be paid into directly to the company. So there was an island entity that was formed, and I believe in several cases it's the chartered accountants who facilitated that process, wherein this entity was receiving the funds from the relevant insurance company, and that was being used for supposedly marketing, etc. and all. So the bank which was receiving, or the NBFC which was receiving, was not recording the books because it's not coming in the books. It was being used for the NBFC or the insurance agent, but the insurance company was recording it as marketing expenses. So one day GST officers landed up, they identified just with 16 companies, 836 crores worth of transactions where they said that GST input tax credit would not be allowed because this is not a genuine transaction. So that's again one example wherein till now people thought that this is an accepted model in the industry. Everybody knows how ORC works, but now people are taking a different stance. The government is taking a completely different stance over here. This is another example of digital lending frauds. And here what is important is all of us think that because the new models are emerging, we can't play any role because technology is doing everything. Now what is digital lending? People come back and say that within 5 minutes I will give loans. They have apps working in the background wherein they identify who are the eligible customers, and based on that they can identify what is the eligible amount, and then you submit certain documents and they would disburse the loan. When we are investigating these cases, what we found is you can manipulate that entire process. You can understand what are the 5 criteria that the app is looking for and make sure that you comply with those criteria in your bank statement and in other documents that you need to do. The app will disburse the funds to you. So in this case, for example, the app used to monitor within the bank statement that you submit whether there are regular credits or not. But they are not looking at what is the expense. It was a SME, and in this case it was looked at there is no expense that is happening. There is only income that is happening. Then a lot of cash deposits were there, which was again not identified separately. So technology is there, but technology has its own weaknesses, which is what I think I am describing here. Technology has its own weaknesses. If we understand the business models, if we understand debit credit, if we understand the flow of transactions, I think we'll always remain relevant. In forensic, that is what is important more than the law, more than the provisions. What is important is to understand the business models, understand the basics, make sure that we remember the basics. A lot of us today think that some of the stuff that used to happen earlier is not relevant. And I'll give a classic example of bank reconciliation statement. How many of you today actually do bank reconciliation statement the way it used to happen earlier? I know, I think today Sanjay ji was talking about his boss 8 to 8 and this, and I remember in those cases, even if 1 rupee difference was there, we are supposed to identify what that difference is and not say that it is not material, so you go ahead. But today nobody is doing that, by the way. How bank reconciliations are happening? They are happening between the two sort of apps. People are mapping amounts, but nobody is mapping the payee details as per the books as well as the bank statements. The banks are not providing that details unless you specifically ask for. So which means if I made a payment to Abhishek but recorded as Sandeep, there is no way to recover because the amount is matching. So basics would remain, I think, in vogue throughout our life. We think that if we have ERP system, duplicate payments cannot happen. But people have figured out how to make duplicate payments even within an ERP system. You add a space, it will not pick up. You put in 2 different periods, it will not pick up. If you add a special character, it will not pick up, right? So weighbridge, electronic weighbridge, people think it is perfect. But we have seen cases depending on how you place the vehicle. Whether you place in the center, whether you place in the left, whether you place in the right. So if you place in the center, it will weighs 100, place left 110, place right 90. So if goods are coming in, place on the left, 110 recorded. Scrap is going out, place on the right, 90 recorded, right? So biometric attendance system. I'll just take 2 more minutes, Abhishek. So biometric, attendance. We think that biometric attendance is there, everything is perfect, so payroll is perfect, we can match over there. But biometric can also be managed. We have seen systems wherein instead of one person's, one thumb impression, people took for 4, fingers, saying that sometimes it may get damaged, etc. and all. But those 4 fingers were assigned to 4 different employee IDs. So which means I can give attendance for 4 people. Like that it was done for multiple number of people. So unless you go back and look at the system, how it is working, review the system, you'll never be able to identify if the system is working the way it is intended to work. And the concepts have remained the same, systems have changed, but maybe we have forgotten the concepts. The concept always was auditing through the computer, through the system, or outside the system. If you remember 20 years back, that was the concept. Still the same. All of us think that SAP, ERP, whatever is there, it will do what it needs to do. But there are gaps everywhere. We need to understand those gaps. People who work on those day to day, they get to know of those gaps by mistake, by the way. Not because of any other reason, by mistake, and they misuse it. So if you apply your mind, you can identify those gaps and make sure that you are not caught off guard. So I think this is, I'm capturing that everywhere there is a requirement for forensic audit. Everywhere. Everybody is talking about forensic audit. I was pleased to hear Governor, Honorable Governor today talking about forensic audit, right? I mean, 25 years back when I started, it was a taboo subject. Nobody would talk about it. Nobody will meet. Nobody will discuss because they will think that if I meet you, something is happening. People will think something is happening. To a scenario where I think we are discussing this openly, we have come a long way. But there are opportunities everywhere. You need to prepare yourself and capture those opportunities. Believe me, there is no rocket science in forensic. It's just a mindset that you adapt to crack cases. You need to understand the basics of accounting, basics of processes, basics of the technology, and basics of how businesses work, because the modus operandi remain the same. They are not substantially different. Once you understand that, you can do it. I mean, I can keep going on and on. And there are different areas, by the way. People think only investigation you can do as forensic accounting. I'm sorry, you can do a lot of things as forensic accountant. Somebody is launching a new business model, you can review that from a fraud perspective. Somebody is doing an M&A, you can do a forensic due diligence on the target entity to identify if there are undisclosed liabilities, undisclosed issues, undisclosed related parties, etc. You can do fraud risk assessments proactively to identify issues. You can participate in competition law reviews, like I said. So it's not just investigations, the opportunities are immense. And if you look at this slide, everywhere I think there is a requirement for a forensic accountant. I mean, you can just name it. Everybody wants this review to happen. Now we can say that probably we forgot our motto, which required us to be awake when everybody is sleeping. That's what now forensic accountants are supposed to do, by the way. So since we forgot our motto, now you have more opportunities available as forensic accountants, because if you do job as normal chartered accountant, then maybe forensic accountant is not required, because you are making sure that the red flags are captured at the right level. So opportunities all over the place. I think this will be shared, I guess. So I will not spend time on this. Thank you.
So thank you very much, sir, for wonderful deliberation in very short time. Sir have rightly explained the role of forensic accountant in various financial frauds and how the fraud happens. Sir have given several examples of frauds, that how it happens and how a forensic accountant can play a vital role, and how this particular area can be worked out as a new future opportunity for the chartered accountant, which is mostly unexplored in a city like Jaipur. And in city like Jaipur, I want to say we chartered accountant usually around 60 to 70% accountants are working the traditional sort of practice area. And this is a very wonderful area which sir is talking about, the forensic accountant. It is not only required when a fraud happens, as sir rightly said, this could be forensic accounting investigation, can also be required in cases of merger and acquisition, in cases of due diligence also. So it's having a very huge scope and area, and it could not be accounted for a less, right? So after the detailed presentation by the sir, let's come to the question answer with the panelist. Before starting the panel discussion, I just want to give an example in starting that how fraud happens, that sir have said, which I've been practically witnessed in one of the company. There was a company who was a supplier of some machineries after import, right? There was another company to whom the company used to supply, right? And the buyer company used to give the purchase order, procurement order to the company who's going to supply, and the purchase department, the project department of the buyer company was involved in ordering, right? So once we have gone through the records and these financial documents, the procedures, systems, each and everything, through the course of investigation, we came to know that the particular company who was importing the machineries and project items were used to supply to the buyer company, and total sale during the 5 year was somewhere about 65 to 70 crore rupees to that particular company, right? And what we have found that out of the 70 crore sale, 55 crore rupees sale was fake. How it could be a fake sale? Generally what it came to our mind when we use the word fake sale. Fake sale means two companies are involved in fake billing. But it was not that type of case. It was something different case. Like person A was there in the selling department of company who's going to supply. And there was two departments, I already told you, the purchase department and the project department in the buyer company. The purchase head of these two departments, along with the sales head of the company who's going to supply, were involved in between. The three were involved. So what they have done, once the buyer company used to issue the procurement order or PO, they mention the project as a whole. But they do not mention what items are going to be supplied and going to be equipped and implemented here in the project, right? And the company who's going to supply these items, when they give orders and when they supply those items, they just raise in their invoice project supply, part 1, part 2, and maybe 4 to 5 supply for a project. And even, you would not believe me, friend, it's not only case of fake billing. The goods are supposed to deliver at the factory premises of the buyer company. It was a box, and inside the box, in some cases there were some stones, in some cases there were some wood items and all, right? So once packed box is delivered to the project side, then the role starts. The project head and their team, they used to open the box and used to show that these things have been implemented in the project. And what I want to say, the total around 80 to 85% of sale of last year was fake. Even though supply was there, as a layman, what we understand, यार box आ रहा है, material आ रहा है, delivery आ रही है, records में entry हो रही है, inward register में entry है, SAP में चढ़ गया, project में चले गया, काम खत्म हो गया. Even as a normal statutory auditor or interpreter, what we used to, कि सब कुछ ठीक तो चल रहा है, procurement order आ गया, supply आ गई, inwards आ गया, photograph देख लिए supply की, project में material लग गया, payment हो गया, सब कुछ तो ठीक चल रहा है. There comes a role of a forensic accountant or forensic investigator. And unless until we will start our auditing with an open mind that a fraud might be happens, it will be very difficult to identify the ways how a fraud can be happen. So I'll just share a small example which we came across during the financial investigation, right? So friend, let's start our panel discussion with Dr. Vikas Pathak sir, who is here from the police department and having a specialization in the crime scene. Sir, is there any centralized contract number for making first complaint of cyber fraud? And if yes, then what is the procedure for it? Because generally what happens, cyber fraud happens. And it takes number of days to identify to us that to whom we have to make a complaint. Is it the police department, any centralized cyber department, or to any particular government department? It took a lot of time. So any particular department is there and how to register the complaint? Any centralized customer care number, sir?
After the emergence, good evening to all of you, first of all. And thank you very much, organizers, for inviting me over for this panel discussion. I'm highly honored for the opportunity. After the emergence of cybercrime, especially the phone frauds, MHA has taken the initiative to set up a cyber crime registration portal, which you can reach on the cybercrime.gov.in address, web address, and you can register your complaint there. There are certain procedures that you have to follow, and they have almost included every kind of cybercrime that you can think of or that are in vogue right now. You can also call up a number that is 1930. I think you should all have that number saved in your contact list so you can memorize it, like the 100 number of the police, because it can happen to you anytime. So you dial the 1930 number, and there are some mandatory information that you provide to them, like the phone number that you are calling from, your own phone number, the account and the bank details from which you have been defrauded, and there are a few other details. Thereafter, they send you confirmatory SMS regarding with an OTP, so that you can log on to the website, that is the cybercrime.gov.in, and thereafter you can fill in the form. Once the information is filled in, it is taken up by the backend setup, the people sitting over there, and they carry on certain procedures, of which the very first is freezing the money that has shifted from your account to the suspect account. That is the first step they take. It has saved a lot of money. I think millions and millions of rupees have been saved since it has started. And it is one of the best ways of fighting this cybercrime. Second they do is the suspect SIMs, that are the numbers of which are provided by the victims. Those are suspended or cancelled. So in a way, this acquiring of SIM is one of the basic things that helps the accused, these criminals, the cyber criminals, to carry on this crime. So cancelling the SIM or suspending the SIM is one of the effective actions. Second action they take is freezing the money, and thereafter you can get the money back through the usual process, through application to the bank or registration of FIR, which ultimately concluded, investigation done, challan is put up in court. You can request to the court through your lawyer to get your money back.
Okay, so once this cyber financial fraud happens and money is being shifted from our account into the criminal account or person who is doing these things, then simply it cannot be get back through the police department. That have to get done through the court only, sir. How I can get my money back?
You can get it through the court, or you can also get it through the bank by providing an application, and also giving the details of the complaint that you have got registered on this website. And because the money has transferred from your own account, you are going to provide the credentials to the bank, so they will understand, they usually understand this thing and take the money back.
Okay.
Once it is frozen, of course.
Right.
Once it has moved out of the other's account, it cannot be taken back. It has to be seized by the police in one way or another.
Okay. So it could be taken back only up to the time when it is there in the account in which it is transferred. Yes. Once it is removed from that account, then there is a long process.
It's a long process and it's almost impossible to get
yes,
back.
Almost
Until
impossible.
Unless it is a huge amount of money which leaves a trail back, and where the forensic accountancy comes into the picture.
Yes. Friends, there comes the roles of forensic accountant, and we have to identify the where money have gone. Thank you, sir. Thank you. My next question is from C. Surbhi Jain. It's related to this cyber security. Surbhi, can you tell us what are the emerging cyber threat or issues due to this all digital transformation? As we know that the scope of AI and the use of AI is getting increased day by day. So we can say that more this AI, more risk we used to follow on our daily things, right? So what is the emerging cyber threat? Can you elaborate about that, please?
Sure, Abhishek. Thank you for asking the question. So we have seen that nowadays technology is changing. Everything is on our fingertips. You know, if you want to open a bank account, it is on your fingers. If you want to, pay electricity bill, you can do on your fingertips. If you want to, buy grocery also, it is on your fingertips due to the evolution of technology and the applications which are being used. Now, apart from the benefits of technology and what all the revolutions are happening, the AI-driven revolutions are happening, they have expanded the frontiers of digital revolution basically. Along with that, what happens is, yes, everything is happening, economy is expanding, all, etc., but cyber threats are also coming into picture. Now, what are those cyber threats basically? When we talk on cyber threats, first and the foremost thing I want to address over here is, as per the Alliance Risk Barometer 2022, that reports say that the number one risk over here is the cyber risk for 2022. That is happening due to cyber incidents. Second is operational disruptions, but that operational disruptions are also happening due to cyber incidents as standing at the first point. So definitely this is a major topic or a major cause of concern to be addressed for. Now, there are various types of cyber attacks or cyber incidents happening due to, outages, or some ransomware attacks are happening. Okay, phishing attacks are happening, zero-day attacks. There are a number of, vulnerabilities which are being exploited. So these are the attacks that are in the environment, and yes, the IT ecosystem should be strengthened enough so that we are safeguarding our assets, our data, our systems, our organizations from these attacks. When we talk on ransomware attacks, what it is, simply attacker hacks the system, they encrypts the data and asking for ransoms in return for unlocking or decrypting the files, the datas, etc. So this is a simple case of a ransomware attack. Phishing attacks are basically what? Phishing are like, you receive an email, it appears to be legitimate, but it is coming with an attachment. If accidentally someone clicks on that attachment unknowingly, then definitely the perpetrator enters into the IT ecosystem. How? Because there is a malware or an intrusion which is installed on the victim's machine, and rest is the story that we know, like how they penetrate into the system and hacking done, etc.
What are the preemptive measures? Should also cover this.
Sorry?
What are the preemptive measures and how we can avoid these cyber attacks and all in our systems?
Sure, definitely. So this is another attack. Then talking on the zero-day attacks. What is zero-day attacks? There is an application, and there are vulnerabilities in every application, and organizations do vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. But it may happen that some vulnerabilities are open, we are not aware, but the hacker knows it before us. It is exploited by the hacker, they penetrates the system, enter into the system, and the attack has happened basically. You must have heard about Log4j attack that happened. So that was, the vulnerability was that open source software, and it exploited, and that was the case. So these are cyber threats, but what opportunities lies behind this is applying cyber security measures, information security measures, or data security measures to safeguard our systems, our data, our critical information. For example, we take a simple example like there is an NBFC. So nowadays everything is system driven, as we are aware of. The loans are processed, the loans are managed. Entire loan management system is on the NBFCs. There is an application running, for example. Now, on those applications, the data is there of customers, users, like the name, the Aadhaar card, the PAN card, the installment details, the loan taken amount, if someone has taken it as on a collateral basis, the LTV ratio, etc., etc. Many much information is there for users and customers. That needs to be secured. This is a confidential information, definitely forming part of PIIs also. When we talk on healthcare industries, there is sensitive PIIs which are connected. So that when the data is stored on those applications, stringent controls should be applied on those applications. And definitely the infrastructure which is supporting those applications should also be stringent. When we talk on infrastructure side, best class network solutions, best firewalls, best perimeter security, latest operating systems, adequately configured database, all that sort of checks should be taken care of so that strong IT infrastructure is in place to support those applications. When we talk on applications side, the data is residing thereon. Strong access management controls should be applied. For example, the maker-checker relation should be established so that, the chances of fraud gets limited. That sort of checks should be applied. When we see any internet-facing application, multi-factor authentication should be applied. In case of banks, when we are accessing bank website or something, we are entering our logon credentials, we are asking for passwords. OTP has also been asked. So that is a case of multi-factor authentication that has been deployed. When we go and access the IT ecosystem or attendance system, as sir rightly mentioned. So with the access cards, biometrics are also asked for. So that is also a case of a multi-factor authentication deployed. So these type of security measures should be deployed. When we talk on data side, okay, so data is not only lying on the databases and not only at rest, but data is also transmitted. We know, like we are purchasing anything, we are making a transaction on Amazon, for example. We are entering our details, the credit card details, whatever the details. So we have entered our details and it has moved to Amazon. So the channel through which the data is moving, that channel should be encrypted. That is securing data during transmission, data in transit. When the data is stored in database, that should be encrypted. Not only the database, but also the data that is stored should be encrypted so that we can safeguard our data. Okay, the data is encrypted, etc. But again, there is a cause of concern. We are having email facilities. Okay, there are critical information, confidential information, financial information lying inside the organization. There are internal email transfers also, external email transfers also. So how to restrict the use of or transfer of the critical information? So there comes the picture. There are various tools and solutions in the market. For example, DLP solutions, that is data leakage prevention tools or solutions. That should be employed into organizations so that whenever the data is being transmitted, so what DLP does is, DLP basically accidentally or unintentional data transfer, it limits and restricts that. It also logs the data. The logging purpose is done, which can be used in case any attack has happened, which can be used for forensics, because logs are captured on that part. Then a DLP gives a warning that no, this should not be sent, because some policies are crafted that it is a confidential information, it should not go out. This is personally identifiable information, it should not go out. So that sort of policies are crafted in the DLP.
So according to you,
solutions.
it must be at least two-factor authentication system and encryption should be there to avoid any potential data loss or information loss, right?
Yes, but post that also, internal, external email DLP I'm talking, like that should also be implemented.
Right.
So that it can log, first of all, if something happened, then we can go back and trace those logs. Secondly, we can, it is blocked. Like any warning message comes, if also the sender is sending that email, it blocks the traffic. It is not allowed to send it. So this is a preemptive measure that we should take care of. There are various threats, but what are the solutions to it? We have to look for that.
So we should immediately go for these measures when we identify.
Exactly. And also when we are talking on the operating systems, the legacy systems, the zero-day attacks, what we discussed. So on the zero-day attacks, what it is, there are open vulnerabilities. A simple example, we were using Windows XP, Windows 7 earlier. Now Microsoft itself has stopped releasing patches. Patches, it means the security updates. Okay, and now if we are using those obsolete systems, welcome to the cyber attack space.
I understand.
Definitely you are going to be the victim of that.
You have rightly said that what are the ways to avoid potential cyber attacks and hacking, and what are the security measures which we should adopt it. Thank you, Surya. I will get back to you.
Thank you.
My next question is from you, Lokesh. As we know that in forensic investigation and accounting, there is a certain process, right? Identification of red flags, analysis of financial information and documents, creation of evidences, preservation of evidences, producing those evidences in an encrypted form in the court of law, so that it could be proven in the court of law and charge could be created, right? So my question to you, Lokesh, is that as far as this preservation of evidence is concerned, what is the term relevancy is defined in context of preservation of evidences? Can you elaborate about relevancy?
Yes, first of all, good evening everyone, and thank you for inviting me here as a panelist on one of my favorite area of the practice, forensic audit. Talking about the relevance, so I will say relevance, I will divide it in two types. First, relevance in context to evidence and relevance in context to preserving the evidence.
Okay.
So what is the meaning of relevance here? Ki when we do forensic audit, for every case, the term relevance is different. Means directly jumping out on the thing, ki relevance is particular, a point, a particular definition is there of relevance is not the answer. So first of all, we need to understand the case, that what exactly the case is, and accordingly, we need to find that what are the chronological orders of the case, that where was the exact fraud happened, and according to that, we need to do hit and trial. Means fraudster will never come in front and say, I have done the fraud, just identify me. We need to find that where the points have been hidden. So relevance for evidence means, I will say, understand the circumstances first. And that will be the answer to the word relevance. And talking for the preserving the evidence. So as ma'am said, preserving the evidence, we have two options. First, we can take our own hard drives, own systems, or on the clouds, we can use to preserve the evidence. Considering my personal experience and what I have learned in those 15 years of forensic audit, I will say that with the data which is, you want that it should be secured in a very secured way. It should be taken first on your local drive, and you should always use private cloud for securing and for preserving the evidence. Private cloud means the control of which is in our hand, is in our organization hand, and then only the term relevance can be defined. So preserving the evidence either on local drive, and it should be encrypted. There are various tools that through which we can encrypt the data on our hard drive, and again taking on the data to the cloud, and it should be a private cloud for the relevance purpose.
Right. So you rightly said that what is the role of the preservance of evidence particularly, and how it should be produced, and in what form it should be kept in security. Sir, I want to add on one question here from you. Yes, my question is related to that only, sir. So I want to just elaborate that what important role evidences plays in forensic investigations. You have done the investigation, you have identified, yes, fraud was there. You have identified your own, but how to communicate it to the court of law, to the stakeholders who have allotted the forensic investigation and this forensic search to you, sir?
Thanks, Abhi. Just I'll add to what Lokesh said. I think from Indian Evidence Act perspective, they differentiate between relevance and admissibility. So relevance is an evidence may be relevant to a case where they identify the fact pattern, etc. and all. But whether that is admissible or not will depend on whether you have followed the process for collecting that evidence. A simple example is you may have identified a document, which is an email, which is relevant to the case. But if you have not followed the process for identifying that evidence. So for example, you don't have the hash value of that document, you have not followed the relevant forensic procedures to extract that document, then it will not be admissible in a court of law. So in simple terms, a document or a sort of evidence can be relevant but not admissible. So you need to be very clear that you follow the defined process under the law. If you want the evidence that you are gathering, which is relevant, is admissible in a court of law. So for that, if it is say a physical document, then there are procedures prescribed. If there is an electronic document, there are procedures prescribed under the IT Act as well as IPC. Plus, if it is say a bank document, there are again procedures prescribed. How do you obtain a certified copy? So you need to make sure that you are following the defined procedures under the Indian Evidence Act as well as the relevant law for the evidence that you have gathered, which is relevant but also admissible in a court of law. So I hope that clarifies.
But one more thing here, sir. In evidence, I think, sir, during forensic, we have to follow both the channels, formal and informal. Means relevance evidence we can make through informal channels also. But as sir rightly said, to be it in court, to put it in court of law, after getting the relevance evidence, try to get how it can be the admissible evidence in court.
And the biggest challenge is, sir, the source of data, whether it is from the primary source or secondary source. Maybe it is from the primary source, then it is easy to get the acceptability in the court of law. But it is from the, if it is from the indirect source or secondary source, then it is very much difficult, first of all, to create the evidence, to preserve it, and to produce in the court of law. So there is a lot of
So I think it's a very, sort of complicated subject. With he being here, I don't want to, take the liberty, but evidence and then what is admissible, what is not observable, what is primary, what is secondary, what is circumstantial, I think it's case to case, basis. But in simple terms, you need to know the basics of first, what evidence is required, how you collect that, evidence and how you produce that evidence. In all cases, it may be impossible to get the, primary, evidence, but if there is enough circumstantial evidence, based on that also you can build the case. Right? So there are multiple concepts over there. We can spend an hour discussing that. But for this, I think, session, I would simplify that you need to know what evidence you need, whether you get from formal source, informal source. Ultimately, you need to follow the process if you want to produce in a court of law. So let's say you're issuing a forensic audit report, as the bankers call. We don't want to call, but the bankers call forensic audit report. You need to have the certified copies of the documents that you have taken. If you don't have that, it pretty much has no relevance in the court of law. That is where then the agencies come back and tell that whatever you have done is of no use to me, because there is no backup available for what you have done. I have to again go back and do. So what you are giving me is relevant but not admissible. In simple terms, that's how it works.
Right, sir, right. Rightly said, rightly said. Sir, my next question is to you only, sir, Sandeep, sir. We are sitting in a city like a Jaipur, right? We understand that, and as a general chartered accountant, as a common chartered accountant, we understand that the forensic audit is not a bread and butter of each and every chartered accountant. The reason being is that what we understand, that generally forensic audit is required by the regulators, maybe SEBI required, ED, police, crime branch, or other regulators required. Maybe banks also require the forensic audit. But I'm a MSME CA firm. I'm sitting as a Jaipur, I'm a MSME CA firm. So whether I can find any role or any importance as far as forensic investigation audit is concerned, can I expect some work orders as of now?
Absolutely. I think the way it is expanding, almost every audit, there is an expectation that there is some element of forensic, whether it is internal, whether it is external, whether it is concurrent. There is an expectation that there will be forensic. So if you specialize in this area, acquire the relevant skill sets, the opportunity is immense. Plus today the world is interconnected and it's global. I mean, so you're thinking you're sitting in Jaipur, so Jaipur is the market, not necessarily. Like you, I'm sure you have some tax practitioners over here who are practicing across India. Same way you can have forensic practitioners over here who can practice across India as well as globally. If you look at different opportunities besides the government and then the agencies, if you look at simple things like say Municipal Corporation of Jaipur, just giving an example, they have hundreds of crores spent every month, year on different aspects. There is an expectation from the public, from the various transparency resources that, okay, those should be, forensically audited. Simple, example. Then we always think about forensic audit required only by large companies. That's not necessarily true. Even in a 100 crore company, there is some fraud happening by the, purchase, guy. If you help them uncover that, recover that, I'm sure they will pay you fees. So the concept that is working today in the forensic world is especially around the procurement related frauds where the funds have been diverted from the company. How can you make sure that you can recover the money, not just establish that the funds have been diverted and siphoned out, but also recover that amount. So that is where this profession is moving, and not just ending up by identifying the fraud and proving the fraud, but also help recover the fraud and in several cases prevent the leakage.
Understand, sir. You have just informed about the skill and knowledge a chartered accountant should acquire for the forensic audit. So what is the way to acquire the knowledge and skill of the forensic? Should I do the forensic audit course? If I've done it, whether it is sufficient for us, or any further skills, any such practical oriented application of forensic audit, we should came to know this before starting of the forensic audit, or what is your suggestion, sir?
So I think some of the speakers earlier said you have to invest. So obviously, just because you do a course within, say 1 month, 2 months, or do a CFE or read a book, right? So that you'll become a forensic auditor tomorrow. That's not, going to happen. You'll have to invest in it first, do the relevant courses given by institute. There is a global, course. There are enough today guidance, available in terms of how to do this. But all those are majorly theoretical, I would say. Then make sure that if that is your passion, associate with somebody who is doing this, courses. Spend some time, 6 months to a year, because unless you walk the whole, process from beginning till end, forensic is not defined like a statutory audit where you perform these work steps, or internal audit like you perform these work steps. Every engagement, the work steps are different. So you need to do at least few engagements to understand what is, happening. Now, wherever that may be, associate, do those engagements, then I think get into, that area. But again, like I said, the opportunity is immense. You have to invest and then expect results. So it will not happen just by doing a course and within 2 months you start off, doing a forensic audit.
Understand, sir. It took a lot of time and devotion to understand the procedure for the forensic audit. Thank you. Again, Vikas sir, I get back to you. Cybercrime, right? So, sir, once a crime has happened, we go to the police station and file a FIR, lodge a complaint and all. So what is the jurisdiction, this procedure in the cybercrime? Whether I have to register, I want to register any cyber offense. So should I go to the normal police station, or is there any separate procedures for registration of the cyber crimes? And how the jurisdiction is decided?
Before that, I'd like to add two things regarding one was admissibility of evidence. There is a whole different.
Sir, who can know better than you, because you used to produce in the court of law?
There is a whole different chapter, books and professionals who deal with handling of digital evidence. Even the question that when you are there on a raid and you find the computer on, what should you do? There is a process for that also. So until and unless you follow that process, things will change. As sir said, hashtag values will change. It will come under question. Best way is record it as you have done it, record it in writing, and also carry on the videography. So in any way you handle, you have the proof that I did it this way. Maybe you might make a mistake in handling one of the devices, but if it is put on the record, even the hash value changes, it will be admissible in court. And rest all is quite a lengthy discussion. Second, I would like to...
Jurisdiction of cybercrime.
No, not jurisdiction. The foreign accountancy and foreign audit. See, it is about, this is just a personal experience. Earlier you had just an MBBS doctor. Later on, you started having gastroenterologists, cardiologists, doctors of every kind, and then now you have super specializations. As the country progresses, as diversification is there, as more money is there in the pockets of people, they will be inclined towards specialist services. And that is happening right now. And with time, with knowledge, people are going to go for this forensic audit, people who really understand the risk in the business. It's not about just being a bloodhound, but being at the safer side yourself. Now coming to my area of expertise, cybercrime, like any other crime, can be registered in normal police stations, number one. Second thing, there are special cybercrime police stations that are there in various states. In Rajasthan, we are opening up a cybercrime police station in every district now, so that it can be handled specially, and it is actually undergoing, this process is under supervision of the special operation groups of Rajasthan police. So regarding the jurisdiction, it's basically quite a funny thing when you encounter certain cyber crimes. I remember the time when I was DCP South here, and I have really, sharing my, this is just sharing my experience that I have made arrangements, police arrangements for many VIP programs here in this auditorium. And this was the first time that I'm sitting over this side. One of the programs when Shri Amit Shah was here for some program, I actually traveled 9 kilometers within this building itself in order to check, because he's quite he's a high risk personality in terms of security threat. So this was just, I was just sharing because I remember it from the other side, most of it. Now I'm looking at from this side so I can see a lot of other things. So regarding this jurisdiction part, uh, we are now having a victim-centric approach. One of the issues that happened when I was DCP South was we started getting calls and we started receiving people at 2 or 3 police stations, that is Ashok Nagar, Mahesh Nagar, where people came and said that their accounts, they were getting messages from their banks that money is being withdrawn from some ATMs from their accounts. And while they were there in the police station itself, money was still being withdrawn and the messages was coming. So we started the investigation, but some of the officers said that we found out where the money was being withdrawn from. It was from Delhi. Some of the officers suggested that since the money is being withdrawn from Delhi, the case should be registered there. I openly and straightforwardly denied, because the victim is here, and I cannot even imagine sending him to Delhi for getting his case registered. So it was a fraud of around to the tune of 25 to 50 lakhs. We worked day and night, 10 days, to identify, and it was just a super case where I had to deal with more than 30 banks. I had to deal with more than 30 agencies to which the banks give the responsibility of recording ATM videos. I had to deal with the taxi cab companies. I had to deal with all the service providers that I had. I had to deal with the passport office, and I might be forgetting a few other institutions with whom I had to interact. And in 10 days, we cracked the case, and we got a Romanian gang. The very first time we got a copy of the passport of the person, my guy, he brought me the passport copy and said, "Sir, ये तो विदेशी है." So, and he was there standing astounded, as if he was not able to believe that बाहर का आदमी करेगा. So we got that Romanian gang, and thanks to God, we also recovered 50 lakh rupees cash from them from Delhi. So,
wonderful, sir.
As far as jurisdiction is concerned, it should be where the victim is. It shouldn't be anywhere else.
Understand, sir. And one thing, sir, I've rightly said that once we change the angle to look towards the things looks different. So it have a lot of means. You all have to understand this. My next question, I come back to you, Surbhi, again. One quick question to you, because we are running short of time. So how third parties, which are service provided to the organization, could they can create some sort of risk to the data of the organization? As an owner of the data, gives lot of vendors different works. So whether I can have some threat from these vendors for my data particularly?
Definitely, yes. I would like to quote a case recently which happened, Nissan automaker, North America. So recent case had happened wherein what happened is that the third party vendor was having data of the customers, critical data, and they were performing some testing and alternative software testing solutions over those data, and they were developing some platform for those automaker. But accidentally what happened was the data got exposed. And the reason for that was poorly configured database. That's what I was saying, that IT infrastructure should be strong. So due to that reason, the data got exposed. So it was lying with the third party. Similar the case, only third parties are not the service providers. They are consultancy firms, advisory firms also. So the data which is lying with them should be, so like adequate security measures should be applied to the third parties, the consultancies, and the data providers also. Because there is a chance that the data got leaked from the third party itself. So that can be the case. And one more thing I want to add in this, like, okay, if the data got leaked or anything happened, the most important thing is maintaining the strong logging and monitoring system into the organization so that it can help in forensic investigation further. As what is logging? Basically capturing, audit trails, like from which IP, what activity, at what time, what type of transaction has happened. So that sort of logging and monitoring mechanism should be established. And the certain guidelines also has said clearly that you have to maintain and retain the logs for at least 180 days. And if the business of financial nature, then definitely for 5 years you have to retain the logs. So that sort of strong mechanism should be established. And you must have heard about SOC, Securities Operations Centers. So these are 24/7 monitoring team, basically. They are monitoring the alerts. And along with that, they are using CM solutions nowadays. So that is the data analytics tool, which analyzes those threats, and after that, it performs the data analytics and take out that what are actual cyber threats. False positives, true positives are there, but still, this tool is helping. So this is people process technology sort of agenda, what I can say. But yes, still cyber attacks are happening. Still something is missing. So what I would like to quote over here is that AI and ML techniques should be incorporated in those CM tools.
Understand. So what Surbhi have rightly said, that logging trail should be one of the factors which should be there. So at least we can find it out that who have breached the data and at what time data was breached and how we can take the further action against it. Lokesh, I want to add one quick question to you from here only. How we chartered accountant can be technically equipped ourselves to go to complete the process of the forensic audit, because we understand that forensic audit is not a single process. It's a combination of multiple of various processes: identification of red flags, analysis of information, evidences, preservances, produced in the court of law and like this. So what is your suggestion how we should be technically equipped to complete the forensic audit?
Talking for how chartered accountant can be technically equipped and and how we can proceed further. For this, I just want to share my experience in the initial days of my career when I qualified my CA. I'm just talking about the physical evidence. So I worked with BCCI when the IPL was launching. I was the part of the audit team, and the action was taken against some of the promoters of the IPL. And after that, we have seen that how the forensic team had took these steps, and we learned that how the physical points has been noted down. So talking on the tools, so I will say before getting any tools, we chartered accountants, first of all, should learn that how the frauds happen, and taking it on a tool, we should learn the computer system first. We should learn the Excel first. Means before taking on the big data, sir, we should take a small data and must understand that if we put the data on a software, what will be the output? How will be the processing?
I'm asking this question to you, because even in this, we are sitting in 2023. Some of us treat computer as a black box only. It is only to writing of the Word document, writing to application, writing of some letters, that's it. Or maybe Excel is required only for presentation of the balance sheet, function,
so
that's
considering the tools, we chartered accountant, what we generally say, ki koi data lenge, we will take a big data, computer system mein dalenge, output ho jayega. In forensic, this approach is completely wrong. We should and we must understand how the software work, what type of analysis the software does. So tools and techniques, I will say, can be developed. We all work on Excel, and believe me, every software on the back end is working on Excel only. So if we learn Excel first, we must learn that what are the various Excel tools are there. We must learn that how to combine the various formulas and applying the fraud and applying the various knowledge that what we have taken. We can develop our own tools, techniques, and software.
Right.
Sir, in my forensic audit, I never use any software for any big data. I develop my own tool for each and every case.
Right.
Yes, for big data, for analysis purpose, if I understand the case, for analysis purpose, I will use the third-party tools. But for first understanding the case, we chartered accountant must develop our own tool that
Right,
would
and for each and every case, it is not required to get some third-party software and all, maybe on case-to-case basis.
Sir, because
if the size is big, data is big, maybe you require some third-party software and all.
So because fraudster also knows that if he got caught out, then there are the tools available.
Understood.
Now fraudster is also an intelligent person. So
Right.
we should first understand his mindset, that
so
what
friends,
exactly
we all
is
should
going
be technically equipped for conducting the forensic audit. Pathak sir, one quick question from you. What awareness program police department is doing to avoid this cyber crime or this threat of the cyber security and all? And how, what precautions we as a chartered accountant or as a person who are a partner of a government in implementation of the government information and all, what role we should play in this, sir?
To answer your first question, we use print media, electronic media, social media. Every police district has its own account on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have a Facebook account and Twitter account, social media cell in the PHQ also. We transmit information in terms of advisories and in other ways, and we try to communicate through news reports also. One of the main ways in which people are alerted about the kind of cybercrime that is going on is through the incidents and the events leading from the incident to the arrest, and thereafter all the press notes and other things that happen. It leads to quite a lot of passing on information to the public. Also FM radio, and in each and every way in which we can, we try to disseminate information. Because one of the main reasons why cyber crimes happen is because people are not aware of what kind of cyber crime can happen with you. Earlier, when people did not know, the usual scam was calling up, pretending to be a bank official. So now it has reduced now. There are other ways that are going on now. To answer your second question, chartered accountant is a very important part of any firm or individual whose financial accounts he's dealing with. So with the advent of cybercrime, it is one of the main responsibilities and the upcoming opportunity for a CA to understand and participate with the company in providing cyber security to the financial data, which is actually very precious. A single ransomware in a big company can destroy, suppose the negotiations don't go on fruitfully, you will never recover your data back. So as ma'am has already pointed out, outlined the steps that you should take, there are some very basic things that you have to understand, and they are like, use standalone systems, use genuine softwares, restrict usage of email for any purpose other than official mails, don't use any external drives without knowing them, without their authenticity, use softwares that is antivirus softwares and other things, and last, use encryption. These are the things, and the CAs are supposed to be advising the companies or the boards or the individuals they are catering to. It is your responsibility. You should be a part of it. Thank you.
Rightly said, sir, rightly. My last question to you, Sandeep, sir. As I told in starting off this session, that chartered accountant who are doing a statutory audit, if he fails to identify some red flags from the financial statements, and later on at the time of this forensic investigation, it came to know that there were some simple red flags, and with some common understanding of the financial documents and information, it would be easily identified. But the chartered accountant failed to identify, and it is now identified in the forensic investigation. So at that time particularly, what will be the consequences for the chartered accountant who have done that statutory audit and have not identified these red flags? Number one. And number second, whether the forensic auditor or forensic accountant, rather I should use the word, forensic accountant should also mention that thing in his report itself, that the chartered accountant who was doing the statutory audit have forgot to identify these or highlight these red flags.
Thanks, Abhishek. I think I'll reverse the question because second is simpler. Normally, the forensic investigation scope doesn't include what other, say auditors or service providers are doing, because the focus is to identify what happened, who did it, and then what is the evidence, available. So generally, that is not the scope, except in specific cases where, say, the government appoints or the agency appoints, where the focus of the investigation to identify what were the lapses. Then I think you get involved. There also you have to establish intent.
Sir, one case I've gone through this of National Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
The financial scam of more than 57 crore.
Yeah. Yeah.
In this case, there were 2 to 3 forensic auditors, different forensic auditors, and one of the forensic auditors mentioned in their report itself that the statutory auditor have just not identified the red flags, which were there itself in the financial statement.
So I think we'll have to again see the scope, because again you see there are different people. Yeah, different people did the work, and it's there in public domain who all did, including some of our teams. But what is important is what is the scope. If there is a scope, like I said, where it is defined, say SEBI or somebody has asked that needs to be looked at, then you generally look at that. Otherwise, it's not like a prerequisite from a normal investigation perspective. Now coming to the first question. So the statutory auditor has not identified the red flag, and then now the forensic auditor is identified. What are the implications for the statutory auditor? So normally, again, that is a role that gets investigated by whoever is appointed to investigate that and identify, is it an error, is it negligence, is it gross negligence, or is it fraud? If it is demonstrated that the person had the knowledge of that fraud and has not disclosed, then it becomes a different issue. But if it is not demonstrated that the person had knowledge, but there is a negligence, then there is a different approach that is adopted. So it all depends on what is established, because when you are doing your work, whether as auditor, internal auditor, statutory auditor, or forensic auditor, there might be errors sometimes, error of judgment. Plus, the data that is available to a forensic auditor is completely different than statutory auditor. Forensic auditor has access to emails, has access to devices from where we can get data. Statutory auditor doesn't have access to that data. They have access only to the records that are produced by the company. So if this red flag is emerging from a data that is not normally available to statutory auditor, then that's again a different issue. But there have been cases where it is found that on the files, and I gave that example in the presentation. On the file, it is clearly evident that you have both the purchase data and the sale data. Same parties appearing both sides. Money is getting circulated. Unfortunately, in that case, two different team members were working. So it was probably negligence, but it was a Herculean task for that auditor to demonstrate that it was an error and not a intention, because the file has the data. So it's important that when you are reviewing your files and capturing what is there in the file, you also review from the point of view that tomorrow when they look at one and one together, what will be the interpretation of a third person. So that would be my short answer. But I think one last point that I want to make, Abhishek, in the interest of time, that we think that forensic auditors or forensic accountants can do only financial investigation. That's not true. There are so many opportunities available today that it's not just financial investigation. If you look at pharma industry, a lot of data integrity investigation are happening to identify whether data with regard to manufacture of drugs, quality, testing, sample, etc. has been manipulated. Now, it doesn't require, again, a huge extraordinary skill to do that, but you need to have understanding of the process. Chartered accountants are doing that, of course, with the help of some of the technical resources. Like that, in every industry, wherever leakage can happen, wherever non-compliance can happen, wherever fraud can happen, not necessarily financial fraud, you have an opportunity to work over there, and not just on the financial fraud. I just wanted to clarify, because the feeling that I got is most of us are looking at either just the financial fraud or the cyber fraud, but the field is wide open, very exciting, because every day is like a movie wherein you are trying to unravel what happened, and every time you find something new, different modus operandi, and you need to be ahead of the fraudster, take one step ahead of the fraudster. So very exciting field to be in, and I would recommend people learn more about it, take practical experience, and then get involved, because it will be required. Even if you are doing normal audit going forward, some forensic knowledge, some forensic skill will be required to execute normal audit.
So just to add on a quick thing, we CAs are very good observer. So whenever we go either at client place, or say we are going for a movie, or we are going for a family party, just try to observe that what the areas are, how the things are moving, either financial or non-financial. What I do, I am just sharing my personal experience. Whenever I go to a hotel or any chain restaurant or anything, any area, or say any stock audit, I observe the things that where exactly the weakness of this system is, and try to meet the promoter and say the promoter that there are some areas we can identify, and we CS can create the opportunity with this way also.
As you said that you were involved in the IPL also, so one of the promoters was asking me that who was the person who violated, who was the whistleblower. So I will just quote your name in that. Thank you, Lokeshji. So friends, rightly said by sir that forensic audit, forensic investigation and forensic accounting is not related only with the financial fraud. It's having a huge scope and huge area. And one recent example which I have just read yesterday, that one husband and wife was filing a divorce case, and wife have identified a forensic auditor to identify the actual net worth of husband, so that he can put it in the court of law and can claim the actual amount, whatever as per her share. So again, I just want to say forensic investigation is an unexplored area for the cities like Jaipur, and definitely we should try to explore it. And before exploring, we should try to get more and more knowledge in the particular session. Thank you very much, all of you, all of the panelists, Sandeep sir, Pathak sir, Lokesh ji, Surbhi ma'am, for being with us with this session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Over to MOC.
A big round of applause for the panelists and the moderator. With the advent of technology, the risk of frauds has also increased dramatically. And how this risk can be mitigated, we all got valuable insights in this session.
Today's panel discussions have definitely given each one of us a lot of food for thought. And with this, we mark an end to the first day of the 2 days national conference, SHREYAN.
We thank the Committee for Members in Practice and Banking, Financial and Insurance Committee of ICAI for organizing the conference.
We also thank the Jaipur branch of ICAI for hosting this conference. We further extend our heartfelt gratitude to all our esteemed panelists and moderators and everyone present today for having taken out their precious time to be with us.
But before you all leave, there is an announcement. After a day full of technical discussions, it's time to indulge yourselves in some music and masti, for which there would be a cultural evening at EP East Lawn from 7 p.m. onwards. You can purchase the passes for the same from the ICAI desk placed outside near the stairs. We thank you all. See you.
Thank you, everyone.